Good evening. I call to order the August 28th, 2025 meeting of the Town of Berthoud Planning Commission at 6 p.m. It's tradition of the Planning Commission to start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, Ms. Manso, would you please call the roll of the Berthoud Planning Commission?
Commissioner Sigmund?
Here.
Commissioner Hoffmans?
Present.
Commissioner Pond?
Here.
Vice Chair Smith?
Here.
Chair Anderson?
Here. Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Let's turn to the August 14th minutes in the packet for review. Are there any questions, comments, or changes to the August 14th Planning Commission minutes?
No. Nope.
Okay. If not, then I would entertain a motion with regard to the minutes.
Move approval.
Commissioner Sigmund moves to approve. Do we have a second?
Yes. A second.
Commissioner Pond has a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, then with that, the minutes have been approved. Okay, we have one land use application for public hearing tonight, and it has two parts. So let me provide some procedural background before we dive into them. The members of the Planning Commission are volunteers, and like many of you in the audience, we are residents of Berthoud. Our duty is to review the application materials provided, hear public testimony, hear from the applicant, and then discuss the matters before us as they comply with the land use code and review procedures. In doing so, please know that the code and other regulatory prescriptions provide certain criteria for approval that we must consider. You will hear us use this criteria to determine the applicant's requests and if they meet the code as the code requires. We have staff in attendance tonight to provide us with presentations regarding the land use items and to lay out the criteria and parameters for approval and to answer the commissioner's questions. Once staff has completed their presentation, the applicant will be permitted to provide information about the application. After that presentation, the public hearing will be open. If you intend to speak during the public hearing tonight, please sign in on the sheet in the front of the room. It's right here on this kind of flat little black table. Okay. We gain insight from the information and viewpoints the public provides. Your input is welcomed and appreciated. Please know that we want to make sure that everyone is able to be heard, and for this reason, we ask that you not react verbally to anything that is said during staff or the applicant's presentations or to those from the public who testify. If you need to talk or otherwise express yourself, please leave the room and talk in the little entry room that's kind of right outside this room or outside the building. We will maintain appropriate decorum in this room so that we can be fair to all involved. If you wish to speak tonight, you will be recognized by me. When you come to the lectern, right over here, okay, you will have 3 minutes to speak. But please, when you come to the lectern, state your name and your address. And if you have a name that's a little bit difficult to pronounce, could you please spell that for us? We ask that you keep your comments relevant to the matter being discussed, and we ask that you direct your comments to the members of the Planning Commission and not to the applicant or other speakers. Again, you will have 3 minutes to speak. As stated, tonight we have one land use application to be heard, and it has two parts: a proposed neighborhood master plan and an amendment to the Berthoud zoning map. To recap the process, note that staff will introduce each item, followed by a presentation, and then the applicant may make a presentation. After that presentation, the public hearing will be open, and this will be when members of the audience are welcome to speak. For the land use item today, again, there are two requests for our consideration, but we will only go through the presentations and public hearing once. Okay. To begin, Ton of the Berthoud Community Development Department, the planning manager, will present the land use item on the agenda. This item is the proposed Revere Neighborhood Master Plan and rezoning. For our audience, note that the master plan will be heard first, and if we recommend approval of that request, we will move to consideration of the zoning amendment. Ms. Hildebrand?
Thank you. Okay, before I get started, you all, Planning Commission, did receive 2 documents. So one will be an envelope, such as this, and then the other one is a printed email. So the email, to start with, was community or neighbor comments that were received after the publishing of the packet. And you'll also note that there was an addendum or a change to the packet. I believe it was on Monday or Tuesday of this last week, and that was to attach another community comment. And that community comment is what is also contained in the envelope. And so that individual provided it not only in an email format, but also through the mail. So you'll notice that it's duplicated, but we wanted to ensure that you received all communication. And then before I jump in to the item on the agenda this evening, I'm going to go over just a few slides for those individuals who are joining us this evening who are not familiar with the land use approval or public hearing process. So this first slide I show you this evening is for the land use planning process, and this provides just a quick overview. So as we have guests in the audience, like I said, we'll go through this to help them to lay out the foundation. So throughout tonight's presentation, we will be discussing 2 distinct categories of people involved in the development review process. The first is staff. Staff is inclusive of town staff from community development, engineering, operations, the attorneys, public works, etc. The town has professional staff who are specialists in their assignment areas. The second are referral agencies inclusive of Larimer County, the Fire District and School District, Xcel Energy, Poudre Valley REA, etc. These referral agencies are those whose input we need to have a full and robust review of the application and the potential impacts to the service area of those agencies. There are 4 stages of the land use permit. So the first, the pre-application process. The applicant is receiving input from staff and the developer's team of professionals. The second is once an application is received, staff reviews for completeness and then sends the application out to town departments and divisions, as well as those referral agencies. Generally, staff and referral agencies have 4 weeks to review an application from their perspective. Sorry, just lost my spot here. So, and then they, at that point in time, will also provide input or their comments to be sent to the applicant as part of that review process. And following, then the applicant can address those comments and then they resubmit. So most applicants have addressed comments in 3 to 4 review cycles and are then ready for a public hearing. Some applicants determine the town of Berthoud isn't right for them during the pre-application for the application review process. The town has had several application submittals withdrawn by applicants who received comments regarding landscaping, architecture, site design, and then decided to not move forward. Several submittals do not make it to public hearing at all. So once the application is ready for public hearing, staff sends notice via postcard, newspaper, and the applicant posts a sign on the property. The notice requirements are detailed in the land use code. And then the third process is the public meeting, which is where we are this evening. So in the public meeting, we will be reviewed in more detail on the following slide. But in general, the public meeting consists of staff presentation, again, a presentation by the applicant, public comment, and the applicant's rebuttal to public comment, and then the commissioners discuss and make a vote. And the fourth step is the post-approval actions. After the public hearing for an annexation, special districts are notified. Annexation, land use subdivision, neighborhood master plan rezone, whichever it goes through the public hearing process. And then the town memorializes that approval through either recording of documents, and then it moves on to post-action. So this next then lays out the public hearing process, and as the Chair Anderson did present, it will be staff presentation followed by then the applicant presentation, public comment then will be opened, and then discussion and vote. So this next slide then provides the procedures for a land division. So as you see, we are in step 1, which is change of zone and neighborhood master plan. So the image here provides the time frames in months. So typically the change of zone and neighborhood master plan can take anywhere 4 to 6 months to complete. Of course, that's give or take based upon the applicant and resubmittals. The second step then will be preliminary plat, which can take anywhere from 12 to 18 months to complete. And then moves on to a third step, which is final plat and a development agreement, and that can take anywhere from 8 to 12 months. And again, it's all based upon the application and what we're seeing in the complexities of what's being proposed. And then the step number 4 is pre-construction, inspections, development agreement hearings, and then final inspections, and that's for their infrastructure, the key components that go into a subdivision before then the actual, whether commercial development or residential units can be constructed. And that can take anywhere from 4 to 6 or 6 to 8 months. And then step 5 is the building permits and or use by special review and site plan. So overall, the land division process is pretty lengthy and can take a number of years to complete. So we are in the very first step of this process. So now to the item of the evening. This is the Revere project. The currently undeveloped 38-acre property is located at the northwest corner of State Highway 287 and West County Road 8, also known as Mountain Avenue. The subject property is currently zoned PUD, or Planned Unit Development, and is envisioned as suburban business and suburban residential on the future land use map. The applicant is proposing 2 requests: neighborhood master plan and rezone. As mentioned, the subject property is currently zoned PUD. According to the project records, the property appears to have been zoned PUD in June of 2006 as part of the approved Revere mixed-use PUD overall development plan, which proposed both commercial and residential uses. Shortly after the ODP, or overall development plan, was approved, it appears that the town received a preliminary plat and final development plat application for the development, renaming the project to the Berthoud Parkway Plaza. However, it appears that the Berthoud Parkway Plaza project never advanced and the preliminary plat and FDP were never approved. The prior PUD process typically set development standards at that final development plan stage, which was very similar to what we now call the neighborhood master plan. This is the second application for Revere Neighborhood Master Plan and Rezone, as you may recall. The first application was received in late 2023 and was denied by the Town Board of Trustees at their hearing on June 11, 2024, based on the rationale that the proposal did not meet the Neighborhood Master Plan review criteria. This current application includes a number of changes from the previous application, with the most significant changes being: 1, the current project proposes 81 total detached single-family residential lots with 3 different lot types or 3 different lot sizes rather, at 3,825 square feet, 6,600 square feet, and 8,900 square feet. The previous application proposed 100 detached single-family lots and 2 lot types, sized 3,825 square feet and 6,600 square feet. Second, the current project proposes approximately 5.44 acres of commercial property, while the previous proposal included 3.7 acres. And third, the current project proposes approximately 11.6 acres of open space, including a 50-foot landscape buffer between the neighboring residential lots along the northern property line. The previous application proposed an approximate 10.5 acres of open space and a similar buffer. However, the previous application included a public trail within that buffer. The trail is no longer proposed with this application. The Neighborhood Master Plan is a conceptual design of the development required with the rezoning or a major subdivision application. This depicts the applicant's vision for the overall development, including zoning, transportation, pedestrian network, parks, open space, subdivision identity standards, and other amenities. The neighborhood master plan is binding on a development, and all future platting and zoning action must follow the approved plan or apply for an amendment of such plan. The Revere Neighborhood Master Plan proposes commercial development along the southern portion of the site adjacent to County Road 8 or Mountain Avenue, with smaller single-family residential lots along the center of the subject property, transitioning into larger single-family residential lots along the northern portion of the subject property. So Section 30-6-106 of the Municipal Code states that a neighborhood master plan must consist of specific elements mentioned just a moment ago, including but not limited to zoning, transportation, open space, and parks. Through staff and referral agency review, it was found that the neighborhood master plan contains the required elements. Section 6 of the Development Code states that the town shall use the following review criteria, as seen in your packet and on the screen, in addition to other applicable provisions of the code, to evaluate the application. So in order to approve a neighborhood master plan, the criteria must be met. Staff finds that the review neighborhood master plan meets the review criteria. As already noted, the subject property is currently zoned PUD, or Planned Unit Development, which was approved in August of 2026. As part of the approved Revere Mixed-Use PUD Overall Development Plan, which proposed both commercial and residential. If the subject property were to remain zoned PUD, the approved ODP, or Overall Development Plan, would remain in effect and would be applicable to the subject property. However, the PUD process has been phased out by the town of Berthoud and is no longer a preferred zone district. Therefore, rather than continuing through the now removed PUD process, staff has recommended that the applicant rezone the property to a current zone district. The applicant has requested to rezone the property from PUD to SC, or Suburban Commercial, along the lower one-third portion of the subject property, and SR, Suburban Residential, for the remaining two-thirds of the subject property. The proposed commercial areas would be focused in the SC zoned area, while the single-family residential uses would be focused in the SR zoned areas. This request is consistent with the future land use map contained in the comprehensive plan. Zoning is addressed through an official zoning map amendment. Section 3 of the Development Code states that for the purpose of establishing and maintaining stable and desirable development within the town, the zoning map shall not be amended except when it addresses one or more of the criteria provided in your packet and on the screen. Staff finds that the proposed rezoning meets criteria 2, and the town has shifted away from the planned unit developments, and the proposed rezoning will help create more consistency between the project and what is reflected or intended in the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. Staff finds that the Revere rezone request meets the review criteria. So staff recommends Planning Commission make a motion to recommend approval of the Revere Neighborhood Master Plan to the Town Board of Trustees, with one condition provided in the packet and on the screen. Additionally, staff recommends Planning Commission make a motion to recommend approval to the Town Board of Trustees of the Revere rezone request to rezone from PUD, Planned Unit Development, to SC, Suburban Commercial, and SR, Suburban Residential, as noted in your packet and on the screen. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Commissioners, do you have questions for staff at this point? I have one question. Can you explain to us the condition?
Yes. Here we go. So the condition is that the applicant shall submit an annexation request for the remaining portions of County Road 8 and County Road 19 intersection, as well as the segment of County Road 8 east of County Road 19, at the preliminary plat phase. There is a portion between 287 and County Road 19 of County Road 8 that is already annexed into the town. So there's this weird section that has never been annexed. And so Larimer County, through their request, and of course it makes sense to the town, that with this annexation that be cleaned up and that small remaining portion be annexed into the town. And like I said, the town is amenable to that and understands that why Larimer County also would like that. As County Road 19, the portion of it from County Road 8 North is annexed into the town. There is a portion. And so this would just bring it for maintenance reasons, makes it a little bit cleaner and easier, being that the town would maintain.
And maybe I'm misremembering, but do some of the annexations west of 287 require a ballot measure with that?
That would be land annexation. That would be west of our growth management area. So this is within our growth management area. So it's just, since this is at that County Road 19 is that boundary. So it would be east of that.
So it would be an administrative process.
No, it would go still through the public hearing process. I believe as part of that plating action. It would just be a separate application. And the applicant also understands that this is required and they're comfortable with that.
Okay.
So this would be a totally separate process if the Board of Trustees decided to do this.
Correct. It would run concurrently. It'd be 2 applications and it would run concurrently with the next step, which is the preliminary plat. Yeah.
Commissioners, other questions, staff at this point? That's good. All right, with that, we would ask the applicant if they have a presentation that they would like to make.
And Chair Anderson, if I may, while Ms. Hillenbrand is sitting down and before the applicant comes up, I did want to introduce Luke Sieber, who is the town's Development Review Engineering Manager. He is here this evening, and he can address the items, and maybe before the applicant comes up, he can address items that he reviews, just really briefly. And then also we have Alicia Garcia, who is with the town attorney's office. She is on via Zoom if you have any questions for her regarding any legal procedures. And then we also have Corporal Dressel, who is in the back of the room, should you have any issues that you need him to help you with.
Thank you.
So,
And I was wondering if we wanted Luke to make a presentation. Would it be appropriate for him to do that now, or?
I don't believe he has a formal presentation to make, but he can just give you an overview of things that his division reviews following Ms. Hillenbrand's presentation, or when you feel that that's appropriate, if and when you should want that kind of information.
Well, I think that would probably be helpful if you would just maybe explain to us exactly what you have reviewed when you get this type of application. I do reserve the right, though, to ask you some questions as we get into the phase of our discussions, talking about the traffic study and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Is this on? Testing. So in terms of what we review, what I and my division reviews, it is in this case, neighborhood master plan, kind of the general layout of the streets, whether they meet the criteria, letting the applicant know what type of roads are required and the frontages and improvements that would be involved. The utility layouts, I coordinate with the water and sewer department to make sure water, sewer, and stormwater are all adequately serviced by the development under review. And then I am also the primary reviewer of the drainage report, which will provides the preliminary design for stormwater runoff detention and water quality treatment and stuff like that, and make sure all the runoff downstream is adequately accounted for, so no offsite properties get damaged by the development, as well as the traffic study, which, as you mentioned, might be of more concern at this point. I do review it along with our referral agencies at CDOT, and in this case, Larimer County, since we're in this development's in Larimer County. So 3 different engineers review the study for completeness and provide comment that follows through the development. So this is the first round of the traffic study. It will get built out as it goes along if there are any changes to the development, but at this stage we've reviewed it and found it to be adequate.
And so what you're saying is, if this were to move to preliminary plat stage, that would be something that you would review as well at that point.
The traffic study is required at every stage, I believe, neighborhood master plan, preliminary plat, final plat. It may be that if if the development doesn't change, then the traffic study just kind of follows through. It might be the same one from today. If there are changes that come up as part of the design phase, they need to change the lot sizes or add or reduce lots or commercial sizes, then that would affect the trip count and change kind of the daily traffic that this development would generate. And that would either necessitate some kind of memo or a revision to the traffic study.
Any questions of our engineer at this point? Thank you for that. We appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we're at the stage of our meeting where we would ask the applicant to make their presentation. Please state your name and your address and your
Hi,
company.
I'm Kristen Turner with TB Group, 444 Mountain Avenue in Berthoud, Colorado. And my voice is a little bit hoarse today, so if I start to get quiet, just wave at me and I'll try and speak up some more. Ooh. All right. Well, thank you very much for having us here tonight. We're here to talk about the Revere property. I did want to introduce our team who is all here as well. Jeff Mark is the property owner. We also have Angela High with Brownstein. Stephanie Thomas is here with EPS, and Ruth Rollins is here with Rollins Consult. Not everyone on this slide will be speaking as part of the presentation tonight, but we will all be available for questions should you have any once we finish. We appreciate the time tonight to be able to share our vision for the project and answer any questions that you might have. All right, let's get started. So this slide shows the location of the Revere site. It's currently zoned PUD, and it's located in the northwest corner of Highway 287 and County Road 8. We're here tonight to request your recommendation of approval for two things: a neighborhood master plan and also rezoning from PUD to suburban residential and suburban commercial zoning. We'll describe how the neighborhood master plan and the rezoning meet the criteria for approval and are consistent with the comp plan. I did want to give you a little bit of history for the project. There's some faces that were here before when we were in front of Planning Commission, and there's also some new ones, so I just wanted to make sure everybody had the details from before. We did submit an initial application for neighborhood master plan and rezoning in July of 2023. In April of 2024, the Planning Commission considered the applications and recommended unanimous approval. In June of 2024, the Town Board considered the applications and denied the project. Based on the feedback we heard from the community and the board, we revised and resubmitted the plan in December of 2024. And since that time, we have been working with staff to ensure the application meets the criteria for approval. All right. So to start, I just generally wanted to mention the differences between the original application and this plan that we're proposing tonight is a decrease in residential units and an increase in the commercial land as much as possible. So the specifics of this plan, we have roughly 38 acres and we're proposing 81 lots. This is a reduction from 100 lots with the previous proposal, or a 19% reduction. We've located our largest lots along the northern property boundary, as you can see, and then they start to get a little bit smaller as you come interior to the site. So the next size down is that orange row of lots, and then interior from there. Those yellow lots are our smallest lots, and we've kept them interior to the site so that everything else around the perimeters is larger. We're proposing 5.4 acres of commercial. This is an increase from 3.7 acres on our previous proposal, and it's located along County Road 8. So the plan is for a mix of single-family detached residential housing. You'll notice that there's significant buffers that are all the way around the perimeter of the property. We also have centrally located park space. We have a regional trail extension located on the east side of the project. And we also have a neighborhood trail network throughout. It kind of weaves its way through the entire neighborhood. A mix of residential and commercial is in conformance with the comp plan, and based on our traffic study, represents the maximum amount of commercial that can be developed on site without exceeding the maximum capacity for County Road 8 and Highway 287. We've also looked at water and sewer capacity, which has been confirmed for the site, and stormwater systems will be constructed on site during development to manage runoff and ensure compliance. Excuse me. All right, a few of our statistics and details. So for this property, there are 2 product types that are required, and we are providing 2 product types. I want to make a clarification or correction on our actual neighborhood master plan document. Under product types, it says that 2 product types are required and 3 are provided. That is just a typo that will be corrected before this moves forward to town board. We are providing 3 different lot sizes, but 2 different product types per the code criteria for how those are defined. We're also required to have 5 site identity elements. These are the types of elements that make a neighborhood feel more unique and like a neighborhood. And we will be providing all 5 of those as well. They will include an enhanced entryway, trails, usable open space, a pollinator garden, and buffer areas. All right, so we wanted to talk a little bit about the public benefits of this project. This is something we've been very deliberate about throughout the process of design, making sure that these significant public benefits are parks, trails, and open spaces that we've included. So we have about 1.1 miles of regional and neighborhood trails. So the regional trail, again, is what you see in that cyan color on the east side of the project. The neighborhood trail system is that magenta color that sort of loops through the property. And then we have an additional approximately 1.9 miles of detached sidewalks as well, and that's all the green that you see on the plan. So overall, we have 3 miles, or a little over 3 miles, of combined trail and pedestrian network within this neighborhood. So it's going to provide the opportunity for some really great loops, connections east to west, north to south, and opportunities for folks in this neighborhood to get out and enjoy. Another correction that I did want to make on the neighborhood master plan, again, a typo that will be corrected. Under the park statistics, it's listed as requiring 0.8 acres of park for 80 homes. The requirement is actually 0.81 acres for 81 homes. So minor typo, but that will be corrected. So we're required to have a little bit under an acre of park space. We are providing 1.25 acres, so we are in excess of that. Open space is really a great benefit for this neighborhood. Our requirement for this neighborhood is to have 3.8 acres of open space. This plan reflects over 11 acres of open space. So overall, that park and open space ends up being over 28% of the total property, which represents a significant public benefit. Okay. So if we dive into the parks, we're zooming in a little bit here. We have 2 amenity areas, both centrally located, as you can see. One of them is going to be more active. It's going to include things like play structures, shade structures, seating and gathering areas. Our pollinator garden is planned up in that northwest corner. And then you'll see on the east side, that smaller green area, that's going to be more of a turf, quieter area, a little bit more passive. So depending on what folks want, if they want a little bit more energy, they go to the west side of the street. If they want it to be a little bit quieter, sit down and read a book, they go to the east side of the street. We always like when we have enough space to provide different locations for kind of a different vibe so that people can enjoy the space depending on what they're looking for. Again, overall, that open space and park space is making up more than 28% of the overall site. I wanted to go through a little bit of the differences between the previous plan and the proposed plan as well, so you understand the changes a little bit more. So on the left, you'll see the previous plan. It's grayed back, but we've highlighted the areas of change. And on the right, you'll see the proposed plan. Those areas are highlighted again on that plan. So overall, we have a reduction in the lot count from 100 to 81 lots. This is a 19% decrease in the overall density for the project. The larger lots are located along the northern property boundary, and we've reduced the number of lots that are located along the northern property boundary as well. We've maximized the commercial development from 3.7 to 5.4 acres. And you'll see if you look at that, the yellow bubble along the south side of the project, what we did was we removed all of that residential that used to make up the northern part of the commercial, and we've extended that commercial all the way up to the right of way. We've removed the trail along the northern property boundary in response to neighbors' concerns about privacy, and we've incorporated more trail systems through the interior of the neighborhood. We've done a significant amount of engineering analysis to determine how to increase the commercial, and this plan represents the maxed out scenario. This is the maximum amount of commercial that can be accommodated by the existing traffic infrastructure. All right, so the property has existing PUD zoning, and I think as all of you are aware, in general, when an older property has old PUD zoning, the town's preference is for us to bring it forward into straight zoning, as we call it. Most of the old PUDs have limited or no design criteria associated with it, so it makes it very challenging to ensure that it develops the proper way. So by bringing it into a straight zone district, it is very clear what all the requirements will be. It's much easier for staff to evaluate a plan and make sure that it's meeting all the criteria, as well as you guys when it comes back in front of you for evaluation. So the proposed zone districts for this property are suburban residential and suburban commercial, which are based on the comp plan. So you'll see a big black oval here circling our property just so it's a little bit easier to find. This is the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. And it does call out this property as suburban business and suburban residential. And I just wanted to explain really quickly, the future land use map designates desired land uses. And so most of those match the zone district names as well. But in terms of the pink on their suburban business, that's the requested land use, but the associated zone district is suburban commercial. So if you hear me talk back and forth between suburban business for the comp plan and the zoning being suburban commercial, that's the reason why. So the neighborhood master plan and zoning proposes suburban commercial and suburban residential and are therefore consistent with this comp plan. The guiding principle for suburban residential is that they are intended to provide for neighborhoods with primarily single-family detached, single-family attached, and affordable housing options. They're also supposed to feature low to moderate density. The neighborhood master plan and the suburban zoning are compatible with this area type because they allow for only single-family detached housing. The guiding principle for suburban business is that they're envisioned as a vibrant, walkable commercial district with opportunities for shopping, eating, employment, and other services. The commercial areas in the neighborhood master plan and the requested suburban commercial zoning are compatible with this area type because they allow for these commercial uses. All right. So as Ton mentioned, there is an old ODP for this property. It's from 2007, and it was approved allowing for 100 residential units to be developed as part of this development. And so although the development of the property was delayed and nothing has happened there since this was originally done, the current proposal is consistent with what has been envisioned for the property for nearly 20 years now. Some additional feedback that we received from the community and the board was regarding adequate buffering between this development and the existing neighborhoods. We do have a 50-foot buffer along the northern property boundary. This does not include additional setbacks on the existing lots to the houses or setbacks that will be required on the lots that are proposed for this site as well. So in addition to that 50 feet, we have more space than that. Now I would like to correct in the top right corner, it says the shortest distance is 111 feet. That's not quite right. Our shortest distance is 90 feet. So that's a typo there that will get updated. But you'll see that we're anywhere between 90 feet and over 800 feet between this development and adjacent development. So there is a significant amount of buffering that is provided. And Ton, please do correct me if I'm wrong, but in general, I believe that adjacent uses, when they are the same uses, don't actually have a buffer requirement. We've been working with Ruth Rollins, our traffic engineer, to analyze the traffic impacts and maximize the commercial for this property. And I'm going to invite her up to speak a little bit about the traffic, and then I will come back up to wrap up.
Okay, I'll put this down here Don't let me forget that. Good evening. My name is Ruth Rollins with Rollins Consult. My address is P.O. Box 1164 in Fort Collins, and I'm a resident of Larimer County. So we're revisiting the mobility study for this project. I wanted just to start off with some parameters of what traffic engineers use when they conduct traffic impact studies. The first thing being the Institute of Traffic Engineers, ITE. They have a trip generation handbook, and that's what we rely on to look at what does commercial generate as far as traffic goes on a daily basis, on a morning peak hour, on an evening peak hour. Homes also, and apartment buildings, and all of that is contained in a book that's about that thick. The second thing that we use is the Highway Capacity Manual, and so that guides us on how to analyze intersections, where they're, if they're signalized or non-signalized. That is our guiding document, and that's a federal document. We also use the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and that talks about how you stripe an intersection, tapers, what are the requirements for signal heads, and that type of stuff. So all of that is documented in the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. We also use Larimer County standards for this. Bertha does recognize many of those standards, and so that was also applied to this project. And lastly, which is not on here, the Colorado State Highway Access Code was also used as a part of this. How do I?
It's the arrow keys.
Perfect. Okay. So now see, I can't see this and talk to you guys at the same time. So I'll try to. All right. So when we went before town board, they wanted me to look at kind of maximizing the intersection of Mountain Avenue, County Road 8 at US 287. So to see if I could tweak out any more commercial square footage for this property. So I went back and did that exercise. And what you can see here is just the former plan that we had and the daily counts of 4,000 vehicles per day. And then the current plan that's before you tonight with about 5,000. So we got about 5,000 additional daily trips, about 100 additional PM peak hour trips when we shifted and subtracted about 20 units, 19 units, and then added some additional square footage. So this is the key to all of it. On the right-hand side of this is the existing intersection. And, we use figures that have arrows, how many through lanes, that type of stuff. So that's how we depict that intersection in the traffic impact study. So that's what is there today. The long-range future. So this traffic study was done for 20 years in the future. We added some additional lanes, so I maximized that intersection. So I've got an additional southbound left turn lane, an additional northbound left turn lane, which also means that for the Revere project, additional right-of-way has to be dedicated to receive those 2 lanes that are turning onto County Road 8. So there was additional dedication for the Revere project. Let's see, what else do I have? I have dual left turn lanes, both eastbound and westbound. So there are dual lefts in the westbound direction. We add dual lefts in the eastbound direction, and then an additional through lane in the eastbound direction, an additional through shared right turn lane in the westbound direction. So I looked at that being the most I could do at that intersection, and then how much additional commercial could I add to this project site to meet level of service standards. So that's operational standards and to stay within the thresholds. And that resulted in the additional commercial and the decrease in the residential.
Let me stop you there for a second
Yes.
to make sure that I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
In the picture we're seeing right now, what you're saying is that is this using existing roadways, or you're saying we'd be adding to the existing roadways?
We'd be adding, in the long range future, we'd be adding
And at what point would that happen?
That's something that we'll determine when we start to go into preliminary plat, when we look at other projects that are happening in the area. So that's something, the phasing of that is something that we'll need to look at when each one of these happens. This is the total future long range 20 years from now. And the reason that we do the study that way is because we want to know what the Revere property needs to dedicate. Right. So if we didn't look at long range, we might not see that we needed an additional dual northbound left turn, and we wouldn't get that additional right away from the Revere project. So we always start at the long range, and then we figure out how to phase to that. Okay. Does that make sense?
Just to follow up to that, just to clarify. So the neighborhood master plan that is here tonight is presenting the amount of commercial at a traffic level from 20 years from now.
Yeah, and I had a similar question.
I'm trying to determine if the current commercial is suited to the existing traffic infrastructure or a projection of the traffic 20 years from now.
A projection of the traffic 20 years from now. So let me back up and tell you how we come up with the long range projections. So I looked at Legacy Park and Trails at Creekview and Gateway on the north side and all the other projects that we knew of at the time in Berthoud, and added a growth factor onto all the existing traffic. So that's the background traffic. So that's the growth in traffic without the Revere project. And then we add the Revere project on top of that. So there's many different sources of traffic, including growth in just existing traffic, that is accounted for in those long range numbers.
And I understand that you've added lanes in this projection, but I also know that we've seen many other developments that are approved and trigger required changes to the roadways. So I guess I'm wondering, what is limiting us from expanding the roadway to accommodate more commercial than what currently exists?
Well, so US 287 and Mountain Avenue are both state highways. And US 287 is not going to get any wider than it is today. So we're not going to see it go from a 4-lane facility to a 6-lane facility. And that's really what we would need. The majority of the traffic that's driving use at this intersection is US 287 and the growth in traffic on US 287. But that roadway cannot grow anymore. There are no plans by CDOT to widen US 287 to a 6-lane facility.
Yeah, but then how come that you come from 8 in total, 4 on each side, to, well, not exactly, but to 10? Because I see in the future, you're going to have 5 lanes on each side.
So I'm talking through lanes. So if we look at, can I do anything on this thing? No? Okay. I'm like, I want to go up there and touch that screen.
Not sure it's going to show anything on the screen.
So,
I think maybe that one.
aha.
Oh, but it
Oh, it doesn't.
Yeah, we can't
Okay.
see.
All right. So, can I
Yes,
can I
please.
go up here?
Please.
Okay. So, and you guys can see. So, we just have 2 through lanes in this direction.
Yeah.
We have dual left turn lanes,
Yeah.
and then we have a right turn lane.
Mhm.
The right turn lane exists today.
Yes.
The 2 throughs exist today, and one of those left turns exists today.
Mhm.
But there's already room designed in 287. If you're out there, you'll notice that there's room for that second left. So when they planned this roadway, can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
They knew that one day they might need that second northbound left turn lane.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the lane that you see in between the. Okay, I see.
Correct. And so it's the same exact situation in the southbound direction. So it's really 287. It's kind of driving the demand, the traffic demand. I mean, there is traffic demand on Mountain for sure, but it's really 287 and those volumes that's driving that. And 287 is not going to be widened to 6 lanes. And that's what it would take to suddenly have enough capacity to do more commercial and more residential and more of many different land uses.
So are you, again, I'm having a hard time with this. I think you're having the same problem I am.
Okay.
How, if you're saying there is capacity for the neighborhood master plan proposal as presented, if this happens, this can't be a projection for 20 years. If this proposal happens, you would have to phase that in faster, right?
No, not faster. So, because all of these other projects aren't in today. So if suddenly
Okay, I see what you're saying.
every project in Berthoud was built tomorrow, okay, then yes, we might need this intersection tomorrow. But those also occur over time.
Okay.
So we're constantly going back and, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, we'll do new counts. And maybe some of Legacy will be done, and maybe some of Trails at Creekview will be done. And so we'll update these studies as time goes on. And the state also requires this. And then reevaluate things. So does that help?
Yeah, so you're saying,
And Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission, as we progress, should this development move forward, we will phase into our development agreement with the applicant at certain times when events happen, when traffic volumes occur, that's when certain improvements will be warranted. And so at that time, that's when those improvements are met. And in fact, Luke then helps us determine before those events happen, that's when the improvements have to be installed. So we're taking a look at that, and this whole area of Berthoud, there's a lot of development that's happening, and so we're taking a look at all of those and making sure that we're not in a situation where we're behind.
okay, so it's a more holistic approach based on that whole area.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
That's helpful because I think it is counterintuitive that a few acres of commercial development would trigger the need for a 6-lane
Yeah.
287.
Correct.
I was struggling with that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And so if you could just, any more context you have for, like, are we at a point where we can't develop more around 287 at this intersection? Have we reached like a tipping point where we've reached the max in this area?
Today,
In this projection?
no, not today. We're not. So today we're fine. Today Rivera could be built. If it suddenly became built tomorrow, that could be built. I haven't looked at existing plus this project. That's kind of what that scenario is. Other projects can happen without improvement, and then we will hit a tipping point. And it's probably going to be a combination of a couple different projects, okay? It won't necessarily be just one. It might be certain phases of Legacy Park. It might be some stuff that happens with Gateway. And a good example is that Meadowlark is going to be signalized as part of the Gateway project, okay? So they're putting that in as part of their project. Other projects will have to put certain things in. Legacy Park will have commitments that have to be made. But we're just trying to make sure at Luke's direction and CDOT and Larimer County's direction that we include everything in this analysis, right?
So it'd be obviously our staff, including Luke, they'll be looking at this as all of these things happen over a period of time. So that's fun.
And CDOT.
And CDOT.
Yes. Okay. So currently the study intersections are operating acceptably. In the future, and we went out to 2042, with improvements, we can get this intersection to work. Sorry, it's not up there anymore, but the intersection that was up there, we can get that to work. And then we are proposing a roundabout on County Road 8. We have looked at the stacking. I have looked at the stacking and how all that's working because CDOT's been concerned about that. Luke is concerned about that. And so far that looks like that will work. A signal probably will not work at that location. So a roundabout is a much better choice.
When you say it won't work, what do you mean by that?
Well, when you stop Mountain, it has the potential to back into 287,
That's what I was wondering
which
here.
brings CDOT into the equation. The other thing that we did that I didn't mention is we had a right in, right out before. I don't know if you guys remember that, but between the roundabout and US 287, we had a right in, right out. We took that out so that wouldn't add any more disruption to traffic. It would all have to come to the roundabout and there wouldn't be people turning in and out prior to that roundabout.
Thank you for that explanation, because I just want to make sure everybody understood.
Yep. So we also made that change. Okay. I think with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kristen, unless there's any more questions.
If there's any questions, Ms. Rollins?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I just wanted to go over a few of the project highlights as we get closer to wrapping up here. Again, over 28% of the property is open space and park space. That's something we're really proud of. You don't see that on every project. So it's something we feel really good about. More than 11 acres of open space here and over an acre of park space. We think this is going to be a really great public benefit to the residents of this community as well as the surrounding neighborhoods as well. More than 3 miles of pedestrian trails and walks. We know that pedestrian trails and connectivity is a really important topic in Berthoud, and so we're happy to be able to contribute to that goal of the community with this project. We believe this project aligns with the comprehensive plan. It provides appropriate transitions between residential and commercial. It offers significant public benefit through parks, trails, and open space. It addresses traffic concerns with a balanced land use mix. And it responds to community feedback and is adaptable moving forward. I would now like to introduce the applicant's land use attorney, Angela High, to describe how the application meets the criteria for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Angela High. I am with Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck. The address is 675 15th Street, Suite 2900 in Denver. And I am Land Use Counsel for the applicant. And unfortunately, we're not quite wrapping up just yet because we have the criteria to walk through and to discuss with you how everything that Ruth Rollins and with Kristen Turner have described to you meet the criteria for approval that are set forth in your code. So I'm not going to repeat everything that they have already told you, but I am going to call back to the information about these applications that you have already heard. So as you know, there are 2 applications that are before you, and we are requesting your recommendation of approval to the town board of the rezoning and the neighborhood master plan. And I understand that you will be reviewing them first, the neighborhood master plan, and then the rezoning, but in our presentation we have switched those. So I'm starting with the rezoning. There are fewer criteria. We can talk about that a little bit more quickly. But to start here, with the rezoning, as you are aware, we are requesting a mix of suburban residential to the north of the property and suburban commercial on the south third of the property. And the criteria that are set forth in your code in section 30/3/110D, they say that one of these criteria must be met before a rezoning can be approved. And as town staff has already described to you, criterion number 2 is the criterion that is met here, and it has everything to do with changing conditions in the town of Berthoud. And what that changing condition is the move away from PUDs as a general rule to the zoning that is set forth in your code. And that's exactly what is proposed here. We are proposing a rezoning from the existing PUD to the zoning that is defined in your code, and that is how this criterion is met. So moving right along to the neighborhood master plan. This one involves 5 criteria that are set forth in your code, and all 5 of those criteria need to be met. So I'm going to walk through each one. Kristen and Ruth have already done all of the legwork of describing all the information, so I'm going to put it all together and describe how each of these is met. One by one. So we'll start with criterion number 1. And criterion number 1 is that the land use mix within the project conforms to Berthoud's zoning district map and comprehensive plan land use map and furthers the goals and policies of the comp plan. And what we put on your slide here is that comprehensive plan and the proportions of the residential and the commercial. And as demonstrated by the comprehensive plan, what is proposed is a mix of suburban residential and suburban business. Kristen's already walked through what both of those are, so I'm not going to repeat all that, except to tie it all together and remind you that what is proposed on this site is the balance of residential and commercial that can be supported by the traffic on 287 and County Road 8. So this is the balance that is maximally consistent with what has been envisioned in your land use plan. And the rezoning it goes hand in hand with the neighborhood master plan. So the neighborhood master plan has been designed to conform to all of the requirements within the zone districts that have been requested, and therefore meets this criterion by conforming both with the zone district standards and with the comprehensive plan. All right, criterion number 2 is that the neighborhood master plan represents a functional system of land use, and it is consistent with the code, with the comprehensive plan, and with the parks open space and recreation plan. And that we have also put on this slide in order to demonstrate that compatibility. So we've already discussed the compatibility with the comprehensive plan. It is also compatible with the parks and open space and recreation plan by providing all of the open space that Kristen already described. Over 28% of the property is intended to function as open space, which is in excess of the 10% that is required in your code. And the parks that are proposed are 1.25 acres, which is also in excess of what is required in your code. Trails are also envisioned in the parks plan, and specifically a connection with the regional trail system that has not yet been fully connected, but this neighborhood master plan has been designed in order to fit into that and to foster its eventual development. And so in this way, this criterion is also met. All right, criterion number 3 is that the traffic, open space, park, utility, and pedestrian design is adequate and functional, given the existing and planned capacities of each system. So there's a lot in here, and I'll touch on each one. So first of all, traffic. You've already heard from our traffic engineer, Ruth, about how this project is going to be accommodated and how we have worked to tweak the balance of the residential and the commercial to respond to neighborhood feedback, while also staying within the maximum capacity of 287 and County Road 8. With respect to the open space and parks, as you know, we are exceeding what is required in your code. And with respect to the pedestrian design, just as a reminder, and as Kristen said, the plan proposes over a mile of trails and an additional 1.9 miles of sidewalks to enhance that pedestrian functionality in alignment with what has been proposed in your parks plan. With respect to utilities, water and sewer has already been confirmed for this site, as demonstrated by the application that is in your packet, and stormwater improvements will also be provided at the construction stage. Therefore, this criterion is also met by the applications. All right, criterion number 4, which is that negative impacts on adjacent land uses have been identified and satisfactorily mitigated. And a lot of thought has gone into the planning of this neighborhood master plan in order to be consistent both with the vision that is set forth in the comprehensive plan to have that mix of single family detached or greater density and commercial. What has been modified in this plan in order both to respond to that feedback and to enhance that compatibility with the existing neighborhoods has been the increase in size of those lots at the north side of the property to more closely match what already exists. That buffer of 50 feet has been preserved in between those two uses, although your code does not require buffering generally between two instances of the same land use, and the trail that is between them has been removed in order to decrease the activity there and to increase the privacy of the existing neighborhood while still maintaining a significant amount of pedestrian connectivity with the trails throughout the plan. The plan has also been designed to fit within the maximum capacity of 287 and Highway 8. And has been designed to transition from the north to the south to increasingly more dense uses. Therefore, any of the potential negative impacts have been thought about, have been considered, have incorporated that community feedback, and this criterion has been met. Oh. Here we are. All right. The last criterion, that there is a need or desirability within the community for the development, and the development will help achieve a balance of land use or housing types according to the town goals. And those town goals, that need and that desirability, have already been set forth in the comprehensive plan with that mix of suburban residential and suburban business. And this is precisely what has been proposed for the site in a proportion that reflects the engineering and practical realities of the site and the capacity of the surrounding roadways. And so in this way, this criterion has also been met. So in conclusion, to bring all of them back up again, the applicant or the application meets all 5 of the criteria in your code for approval of a neighborhood master plan. It also meets the required criterion for a rezoning. And so we respectfully request that you recommend approval of both of these applications. And we thank you for listening to our presentation. We will be here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Hold on for just a second. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Go ahead.
Yes. Can you tell me exactly what your mitigation has been with the existing neighborhood?
With the existing neighborhood. So what that has been listening to the feedback, because we've heard feedback at the prior Planning Commission public hearing. There was a neighborhood meeting that was held in between the commission hearing and the town board hearing, and then there was additional public feedback at that hearing. And what we heard loud and clear was a few really important things. And one was that we really needed to mitigate what was being developed at the north side of the site. And already what we are proposing is on the low end of density with the single family detached. And what was really important was specifically increasing the size of those lots, which is what we heard, in order to decrease that activity on the north end of the site along with that trail. We also heard that what was really needed by the community was additional commercial, and that's why we went back to the drawing board with the traffic study and determined the maximum amount of commercial that could be accommodated on the site in order to fulfill that need.
I'm sorry, has the applicant actually met with the neighborhood other than the Planning Commission public hearing?
Yes, there was a neighborhood meeting that was specifically held in between those 2 public hearings where the applicant met with the neighborhood and solicited feedback.
Let me add something here in that Commissioner Pond, before you were a commissioner, when we had that hearing, the Planning Commission did, as a condition, ask that meeting happen. Has there been any subsequent discussion on this new filing with the neighbors?
So since that neighborhood meeting, that was the one neighborhood meeting that was held, and this plan represents the incorporation of all of that feedback. And so we look forward to any other feedback that we hear at these public hearings.
Do you recall what was the percentage of the neighbors coming to that meeting? How many people did you have?
That I will call on Kristen to answer.
I don't know the percentage from
Okay.
each neighborhood,
Yeah.
but I'd say
My
we
question was
we
not-
probably had somewhere between 25 and 35 people that attended that meeting.
Yeah, that was my question. Thank you.
Yes,
I have a separate question for you, Kristen.
sure.
If you wouldn't mind pulling up the map of the lots again. Yeah, this
Do you
is
want
fine.
to?
Yeah.
Does this work?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I appreciate the expansion of the commercial area. I was wondering if you could speak to the buffer and any berming between the lots on the east side of the property and 287. I just have a little bit of concern that they're kind of just squished right now between the commercial property and a major highway, and it like looks a little awkward and might feel a little awkward in the neighborhood. So can you talk a little bit about how these different components of the neighborhood are going to merge together?
Sure. And are you referencing it looks kind of like a yellow J?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that buffer area along 287 is pretty significant. If you look at the northern property boundary being about 50, it means that eastern property boundary is anywhere from like 100 to 200 feet, depending on where you're pulling measurements from. So it is a fair bit of space that we've incorporated in there. There will be landscape that's planted in there. We haven't gotten to the level of design for potential berming. That's like specific landscape design, which would typically be included with a preliminary plat. So there's opportunities to look at that. We always have to evaluate a site, when we're getting into the technical details of platting and design to confirm, if there's utility easements in that area. There are often restrictions with what you can do over utility easements, but that's certainly something that we can evaluate. The northeast corner, there will be a detention pond in that area, so that would not be bermed up. That'll be to handle stormwater. But there are some opportunities around the yellow lots that you see in that southeast corner. We would just have to look at the technical components and the feasibility. When berming isn't an option, landscape is always an option. You can use denser plant material, things like evergreens that block views. They also help to block sound. So there's a lot of different techniques that we can use with design when we get to that preliminary plat phase to help provide additional buffering there, but the distance is fairly significant.
Okay, and on the west side where it faces the commercial, do you all have ideas about how to distinguish the commercial between the residential components? I'm just imagining like right now as a house right next to a parking lot or something.
Right. And we don't have a design for the commercial right now, but that will all become a really integrated conversation when the commercial parcels are ready to move forward. So it could be that there are commercial buildings that are fronting, and depending on what they are, they could be smaller shop type things, so you can kind of spill out your door and walk across the street to the coffee shop or something like that. There may be some more buffering that's planned within the commercial. One of our components that we're planning as part of this development is that there will be some sort of like outdoor plaza type area. And so it would make a lot of sense for it to likely land in between that residential and commercial development to serve both of the uses, but also to serve as a buffer. So again, it's going to come down to when those parcels are ready to move forward, and then looking at how do we use plaza space, how do we use gathering space, how do we use landscape, where are buildings fronting, all of those types of things to make sure that we have a good feeling for the residential units that are located there.
Okay, thanks. I think it's helpful to hear those ideas. I just wanted to flag it because I think it is a concern the way that those are.
They're great points. Anytime you have a transition between uses, you have to be really thoughtful about what's happening. And it's just that right now they're big bubbles, right? So there's no design to see, but that design will come forward in the future.
as long as we're talking about this, I had a couple questions about this. On the north side, we talked about the 50-foot buffer. I mean, do you have plantings in mind right now? Are these going to be large trees, or what's envisioned for that? Obviously, we can't hold you to it right now because of some of the technical things you were talking about that could be there as well. But what were you really envisioning there? And I have another question about that.
Did you want to give me both questions, or?
Oh, yeah, the second question would be, considering the setbacks that are required, obviously, and that buffer area, what would be the total square feet from the buffer, from the beginning of the buffer, from in the new plan, the newly filed plan, and then the back of the closest home on the north side in the existing neighborhood?
Sure. Let me see if I can see my numbers closely enough for that. But what I can tell you is that on the Revere side of the property line, there will be at least a 20-foot rear yard setback. So that would be the closest any kind of building could be in the backyard, plus the additional 50. So there's a minimum of 70 feet on the Revere side. And then you have the units across the property line.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a calculation here that would give us some.
I think the closest
Yeah.
one was 41
Was
feet.
it 41?
Yeah, it's fairly significant when you go kind of back of the building to back of the building. They're ranging from, close to 100 feet and greater. So it is quite a bit of distance between actual houses.
We've heard a couple times that there isn't actually a required buffer. Can staff confirm that?
Yes, that's correct. So residential use to residential use, there is no requirement per code to provide a buffer. And kind of going back to your previous question about the commercial and the adjacent residential units, in that particular case, code does require a buffer between commercial and residential use. So it's use to use, and not necessarily zone district to zone district. So there would be a requirement in that regard, and those are the type of details that we will assess and evaluate with the next submittal. So with the preliminary plat process, there will also be a preliminary landscape plan, and that's when we'll start to really look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Did I get both questions or no?
No, I really, I'm sorry, Stacy, did
No,
you?
go ahead. Yours are not answered yet.
What is envisioned there? Now, I know, again, we can't hold your feet to the fire on that, but what is envisioned there as a buffer?
We really don't know yet. There will likely be rear yard fencing. We have not determined if it'll be privacy fencing or open rail fencing yet. And we have not looked at what the landscape will be. It's just not typically a design feature that's included, but there will certainly be native grasses and then plant material beyond that. We just have to look at the details of that location when we get to it. I can tell you that as part of those discussions in the neighborhood meeting, and when we talk to neighbors offline via email or separately kind of throughout this process between applications, we've always let them know as well that if somebody decides they don't want a tree, what would be kind of aligned with their backyard because it's blocking a view or something like that, that's super easy for us to work with folks on. So, we'll need to get into the design, but if somebody's like, hey, I have this view from my back deck and I want to make sure it stays open, we can scoot trees around and things like that. So it's a very easy component to work with our neighbors on.
And Madam Chair, may I? Also, the buffer areas is one of the subdivision identity standards that they have chosen as how they are going to meet those elements. And per the development code, buffer areas should be comprised of berms, trees, and other shrubs. So we do evaluate that at the next submittal with the landscape plan, but we will look at that combination of elements. And as Kristen pointed out, fencing is also something that can be included in addition to those elements.
So a berm, fencing, taller trees are all possible there.
Correct.
Thank you. Stacy, I know you had,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
a couple of quick questions. So it's a little hard on this one, but on the western side where the larger lots make the turn, there appears to be two lots that are not larger size. They're shaded in pink. It may be visual for me, but for instance, the one that's right at the road that then heads west, it looks to me more like the size of a yellow lot, maybe an orange lot, and then there's another one. From the original submittal, those two lots appear to be this. You see which ones I'm saying?
I do.
Kind of bracketing. So are they pink 8,000 square foot lots, or are they smaller?
I believe they're in our 8,000 category. I can certainly go back and double check them. Again, this is a neighborhood master plan is a very dialed in concept plan. So when we get to engineering the plan, that's where you may see shifts too. So, you see two lots and then you see in a green belt and then you see two lots and another green belt, and that may change. Those green belts may move, lot sizes may change a little bit, but the intent is to have those lots be that 81 by 100.
So the commitment is everything shown in pink will ultimately be 8,000.
Along that northern property boundary, yes.
And then I had a question for the traffic engineer. And I'm hoping I can ask this in a way that's simple. And I know it's probably not, and I'm sorry, I've read the traffic report, it's very detailed, it's great.
Oh my gosh, good for you. I just have to say, that's awesome. Okay.
Let's go to simple level of service at 287. And I know level of service can vary at different times of day. And there's some standards. What I'm trying to understand are the changes from the current level of service that's out there.
Okay.
What the level of service will be, and this is the one I'm having trouble finding, with just this development. Forget all the rest of the stuff that's projected through 2042. But LOS is now, LOS with this, and then I know what a level of service looks like at 2042 when all of the larger, more regional stuff is built out. It's that middle category of, is there going to be a change in level of service at 287 if just this development was built? And if so, what are those changes? What do we see there?
And you didn't find that in the traffic study because it's not in the traffic study. So as a standard practice, we look at existing and then we look at 20 years from now background conditions. So we don't put the project in yet. We look at everything else that's been approved, okay? And we put that in first. And then we bring the project into the total long range. So as this project moves forward, if there's an initial phase, that's when we go in and we look at that short range analysis. So we look at 3 to 5 years out and we go, and that's kind of close to what you're asking for, right? We would never be allowed by CDOT, probably by Luke, to do an existing plus project. Because it's a scenario that would never, it's a scenario that would not allow us to assess the right-of-way needs that the Revere project needs to dedicate. And so that's why we start long range, and then we work backwards from there to look at phasing. So that scenario is not in there. It's not in probably any traffic study that's done for a neighborhood master plan level analysis. When we get to a preliminary plat or an initial phase, that is when that question of yours would be answered.
I have a question about the roundabout.
Yes.
Do you have graphics on what's going to be done? Because it looks like it's going to be a curve and then back to the county road.
That's correct, and we might need to call our engineer, our civil engineer, design engineer up. It's shifted to the north so that it can be on Revere property and we're not taking property from the south. Okay.
Okay.
Does that answer it? Or
Yeah, well, I mean, if we have a little bit more details, but what I understand is that now the county road is straight to Carter Lake, I would say. You know, it's going to curve first to the right, then you enter the roundabout, then you get up.
And that's somewhat of a typical roundabout design because you want to kind of introduce, even if you didn't need to do this, you sometimes want to introduce a little bit of a curve to slow traffic down prior to it entering the roundabout. So most of the time, unless it's a very small one, okay, you want to kind of veer people and make them maneuver a touch before they enter that roundabout. So it's very typical.
So it's a smaller one than the one that is a little bit further, the new one that is on the way to Carter Lake.
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember what
Introduce yourself.
Oh,
Please state your name.
yes, thank you. My name is Stephanie Thomas. I'm with EPS Group, and the address is 301 North Howes, Fort Collins. I do not remember what the exact circumference of the roundabout is, but this will be a 1-lane roundabout, and it's designed in compliance with the Larimer County roundabout standards. I want to say it's an inner diameter of 115 feet, but don't quote me on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen, did you have, sorry, Ms. Turner, did you have additional?
I don't. If you have other questions, though, we're happy to answer them.
Okay. Questions, commissioners? I do just have one. I know it's kind of conjecture. If the entire project was commercial space, would that be over capacity for the traffic system in the area?
Yes, and that is a great question. And I actually asked Ruth this question today, like, what would happen if we had any more commercial? So commercial development and residential development have very different generators. So, and I'll use the wrong terminology here because I'm not Ruth, and we'll bring her up here if I say something wrong or if we need her to jump in. Commercial development or generates significantly more traffic than residential does. So we talked about, could anything else be developed as commercial? And really, this plan is the maximum capacity. And so I even asked about individual buildings, and she said, Kristen, if we even had a Ziggy's, that would push us over the top. We couldn't have it. And we'd have to have 0 residential at that point. You know, a little coffee shop would mean all of the residential would have to be wiped out, and then we would no longer be in conformance with the comp plan, which requires suburban residential. So this is the maximum amount of commercial that we can use at this site or develop at this site for the capacity of County Road 8 and Highway 287, while achieving what is designated on the comprehensive plan, which shows both suburban business and suburban residential. That residential is an important component. It's an important transition between the existing neighborhoods and the commercial, and it also helps to support that commercial. So it's, you know, the vision for the property is good. It's just about, it's a vision, right? A commercial or comp plan is kind of that high level look at a property, and as you start engineering down into the site and the actual capacity and limitations of the site, you start to define how much of those land uses and where they have to be located. And that's what we've been doing as part of this process.
Let me also ask you a question about the density ratio. So we've heard, we have in our packet some comments that are saying that density ratio is inaccurate. Can you give us an idea what the math is that
Yes.
for that density ratio?
Yes. So the density for this property as a whole, the entire 38 acres, would be 2.1 units to the acre. If you take just the suburban residential portion of the property, it would be 2.8 units to the acre. So density per acre is determined based on the gross acreage. So if you want to do it on the entire acreage, it's 2.1. If you want to say, no, we're just going to look at the residential portion of the property, it's 2.8. I did see the letters that came in as well saying it was in the 7s or something like that. And what I believe happened is that on our neighborhood master plan, we have a land use statistics table. We're required as part of that table to break out all the different little components of the property. So we break out right of way and detention and open space and parks and commercial, and so all the little components. So the number that's listed for residential is actually the space that the actual lots take up, but that's not how density is determined per the land use code. It's based on the gross density for the property. So even if you were to look at the most restrictive, saying, well, only the suburban residential acreage, we're still at 2.8 units to the acre, which is an extremely low density for a single family detached residential neighborhood in general. That really is kind of leaning towards more estate type zoning in general. I'd say a standard single family detached neighborhood is going to range anywhere between 3 to 4 all the way up to 9. So,
And if I may, the density allowed per our land use code and the comprehensive plan for suburban residential is actually 17 per acre for suburban residential. So what they are proposing is far less dense than what is allowed by that classification.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Any other questions, commissioners, of the applicant at this point? If not, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you to your team. Okay. So let me ask, we are at about 7:30. Before we get to the public hearing, do we want to take a break or do we want to go through?
Yes,
public hearing?
please.
And for our audience, we do have a commissioner that's had a recent vacuum tour. I want her to be able to get a chance to be able to get up and walk for a second. She's been sitting a bit too long, I think. So why don't we take a bio break?
Yeah.
And we will be back in 10 minutes. We're ready? We can start a minute early, I think, so. All right, with that, let's reconvene. We are at the stage in this meeting where we're ready for public hearing, but before I start the public hearing, is there anyone who has not signed the list that's here on the, kind of like that little flat black table, would like to speak? Because now would be the time to come up and sign the list. Anyone? Thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, so with that, I am going to open the public hearing. Remember, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. I will read your name out. When you come up, please state your name and your address again. I'm going to make sure that they're readable. I appreciate that. If I butcher your name, I apologize. I'm not great at pronunciations, and you can please correct me. All right, so the first person on our list to speak is Stephen, is it?
Keep.
Teague?
Keep.
Keep, sorry about that.
I won't touch it. Good evening. My name's Stephen Keep, 530 Towns Reach Run, Berthoud. Our subdivision is, my house is 511 feet to the west of Revere, so that's where I'm at. I request the Planning Commission recommend denial of the application for rezoning and neighborhood master plan because the proposal fails to comply with Berthoud's comprehensive plan, Mountain Avenue corridor overlay, and because it disregards virtually all guidance provided by the town trustees at their meeting of 11 June last year, where the proposal was disapproved by a vote of 6-1. The 11 June town trustee meeting established that the parcel in question was dedicated to primarily commercial use from its prior formation as the Smith subdivision and Parkway Plaza West. As noted by former Mayor Karsbeck and former trustee Michael Patrick, the intent was to serve as an ongoing revenue source for the town of Berthoud as the last piece of land on the west side of Berthoud. And 287. Multiple exhibits were presented showing the record of town engagement regarding this parcel and a consistent intent for use. Residences were unanimous for that lot, were unanimously denied in 2008 by the trustees, and then despite the PUD that said 100 units, which were actually put in by the planning staff, town trustees took that out in 2010. June 29th, they disapproved it, and the developer at the time said they didn't want it. The applicant's company acquired the lot in 2013 with these restrictions already known. The trustees made it clear last June that the developer's request was not in the best interests of the town of Berthoud, and frankly, what's been proposed today is a minuscule adjustment to that, especially when it comes to proportions. The trustee count, I know it's not in the minutes, you got to watch the video, and we were there as well. Trustee comments from June 11th said, there's a need for long-term revenue sources, not residential. Any decision to approve a change to residential is not in the best interest of the town. The percentage balance of residential versus commercial proposed was well out of proportion. The expected feathering of the properties west of 287 toward the mountains is missing. The pedestrian needs must be addressed if this is to be considered for residential use. The roundabout is not feasible as proposed. It just won't work. They said developers apply to build commercial, then drop the plans and move toward residential. We need commercial. That area is a key intersection that needs to be commercial to bring in long-term revenue and is a priority for the community. Said no more residential islands that create a drain on the town. Engagement with the adjacent community has been insufficient. Engagement with all surrounding community, including agricultural properties, is important. I'll point out there has been none since last year's trustee meeting.
Thank you. Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
One phrase directly from the mayor. How do we ensure that we're not presented another proposal that disregards prior decisions of the trustees?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Bruce Bird. Did I say that correct?
got it just right. That was perfect. Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Bruce Bird. I'm 560 Talons Reach Run. I'm in the development straight across the street west of the Revere proposed site. And I own an equestrian farm there. And my neighbor to the north is Mina Cox, Mina and David Cox. They have a farm right next to mine. And Mina couldn't be here tonight, and so she wrote up some comments and asked if I would share them on her behalf. So that's what I'm doing. And I certainly wholeheartedly agree with what she's commenting about tonight. All right. So commission members, this plan is just a regurgitation of the same plan that was already turned down with the exception of the number of homes. This is a slap in the face to our town when a clear message was provided by the town board of the expected land use for this area. This developer bought this property knowing full well it was for commercial use. Since then, the commercial aspect of the property continues to be ignored. This property can provide for a commercial development with around 20 homes to make it compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods and the direct areas around it. This should be denied based on review criteria. It does not conform to the comprehensive plan when the map clearly depicts most of the property to be commercial, and the transition with the residential units to the north of the property is way too dense. It is not consistent with the future land use map, as this property should mostly be used as commercial and not residential. And then finally, the negative impacts on adjacent land uses have not been identified, as the developer has not met with these neighbors to identify those issues since the last board meeting. And I'm certainly straight across the street on a nice farm right there, and I've certainly not had a chance to have any interaction with this developer up to this point. They clearly have not heard the issues if the only thing they can point to is a 50-foot buffer to address neighborhood concerns. They have also wrecked this current land with the lack of care to the property. And I can certainly attest to that. Prairie dogs, etc., come onto my farm all the time, straight across the street from County Road 19. And it's just because this land is in a shambles. It's just not being maintained, certainly not being cared for. So this developer just continues to demonstrate they do not care about the community and the needs, let alone the land that they own. This commission is an advisory group that should look out for the future of Berthoud, and allowing dense housing in an area that is valuable for its commercial potential would be a disservice to our community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, next up is Jim, is it Schweiter?
Schweiter.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Schweiter. I live at 523 Nesting Eagles Way, also in Longs Peak Farm to the west of the proposed development. But I'm here on behalf of Bridget Guccione, who lives at 810 Berthoud Peak Drive in Belcarra. Her property is the property immediately to the north of the Revere development, and she opposes the Revere development as proposed. In the review application, as was noted earlier, the density of the Revere property is stated as 2.1 or 2.6 or 8 units per acre based on lot size. She contends this is misleading. The developer's drawing shows that the total residential acreage is 10.3 acres. And if you divide 81 single-family homes into 10.3 acres, you get a density of 7.8 units per acre. The density of per unit in Belcarra to the north is less than 1 unit per acre. So you have a difference approaching 1,000% between Belcarra and Revere as proposed. And in her view, the most recent application shows virtually no effort to feather or transition between developments that have substantial difference in residential density. Her view is that if you look at Revere, it's a mix of commercial and residential versus Belcarra, which is exclusively residential. And in her view, therefore, that's a different use, and buffering should be required under the Berthoud Code Section 30-3-104. The Revere rezone application narrative seeks to persuade the town of the development's beneficial impact by stressing adherence to the comprehensive master plan, creation of a safe extension of the town's road networks, and connection to the town's trail system. But the narrative fails to note the trail ends just behind Belcarra, and there's no scheduled date for completion of the trail system under the Berthoud Trail Master Plan. The applicant's emphasis on the comprehensive master plan, town road, and trail system creates a false impression because of the incomplete state of the trail network and because the town's road system will be so overburdened by the additional traffic from the Revere development. The town trustees voted 6-1 to disapprove this development before. Her view is that a step down to 81 homes and a marginal increase in commercial acreage without a meeting of affected residents concerning the new proposal is not such a material change that a different result should obtain this time around. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next speaker is Kelly Seaton. Hopefully I said that right.
Sure did. Hello, I'm Kelly Seaton. Excuse me. 820 Berthoud Peak Drive. My home is 41 feet from the property line, if you must know. So you were right, Kristen. 41 feet. Give her some credit. So I'm here to speak to you today as a neighbor, not only as a neighbor to this community, but someone who cares very deeply about Berthoud's future. So the density is still somewhat misleading. I won't go over numbers. You have that in your packet. But 4 to 5.18 acre lots to my 1 acre lot is not considered a step down per code. It's not compatible, using town staff's wording, and it is certainly not feathering, again, staff's wording, that the neighbors have asked for from the start. These are far, far, far from estate lots. Second, this plan fails to deliver the commercial that Berthoud needs. Town board made it super clear at the first denial that this corner should include more commercial and larger lot sizes. This is a 287 and Carter Lake corridor, prime commercial gateway. I can tell you because I watch the traffic in my backyard all the time. I have trees to block the view. Please block my view. I don't want to see that intersection. But to fill it up with dense housing is to give up on a long-term revenue and opportunity for short-term housing yield in exchange, The applicant also argues that commercial is no longer viable because the infrastructure cannot support it. Ms. Turner stated twice now that it's only according to existing traffic structure. What's stopping us from accommodating the future? To exactly what Commissioner Smith's question, why can't we build for a 20-year plan? Why can't we expect this? If the applicant knew that these were our comments and feedback and the town's comments from previous meetings, why wouldn't you explore the max capacity and potential instead of what's there just in existing conditions and what you desire? So finally, this plan still does not meet Town Code Section 30.6.106G, specifically number 5, the need or desirability. We have to remember, Berthoud has hundreds of new homes already approved. The need for housing is being met. I can agree with that. But what we don't have, and what residents constantly leave town to find, is shopping, dining, and services. Every dollar spent in Loveland and Longmont is money lost for Berthoud. Commercial on this corner is our chance to keep money here. Per recent port committee meetings as well, the plan is moving far from connecting west to east. If you can listen to those port meetings online, YouTube, highly suggest it. They are not have any plans or proposals for the Knievel property anytime soon. There was one suggestion at last week's meeting, but it's not going anywhere. Bottom line is this project ignores the town direction and misses a once-in-a-generation chance to create a gateway into Berthoud that reflects our values. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Our next speaker is, boy, I'm going to have a tough time with this one. Scott Charpentier? Is that correct? And could you give us your address? I noticed.
Well, my Berthoud address is a permit number. So it's right on I'm Scott Carpentier, and I own 2 of the 4 gateway corners up here. the northeast corner that you've already approved, and I hope it's starting to make it look pretty for you, landscaping wise, up on that corner. And I also own the southwest corner. So I'm hoping I can get through this real quick, but I would like to, with your permission, refer to 3 of the slides that you have. My purpose up here is for clarity and awareness. I have no issues with the subdivision. I think Krista drew up a good plan for what she had to work with. Jeff, I wish you luck. I can talk to you about commercial and what your opinions are on the commercial, what's going on up there. I've been fighting very hard for commercial tenants, but I'm here to do that. But can I pull up the site plan? Is that okay, Ann? I don't know how.
You have 3 minutes, so I would.
I'm trying to reference it. But this is the planning department, and over a while she's pulling that up here. My concerns are, as a planning department, that you guys are looking at this project by itself, and you're not taking in the other side of the street, and as well as me. So I am very close to being landlocked on my corner, and I'm here to bring that awareness, to be proactive, to be part of the design. I've already sent emails to Ann, I've already sent emails to Chris. I think Ton is part of it, I'm not sure for sure. But to be proactive in this and to bring these things up. So if you can see, my concerns are this. So first of all, this happens to be the buffer slide that's pulled up here, and that's one of them. So that's not necessarily accurate because that buffer goes into half of my property over there on the right-hand side, which is now fully developed. Okay, but my issues are along County Road 8. And just a clarity question is, CDOT has no control of County Road 8. Is that right on that side? No? So the roundabout, we don't have to have approvals for them. Lane changes, we don't have to have approvals from CDOT, none of that?
Sir, you can ask your questions of us, and we can try to help.
Okay, so my concern is that I've been talking to Tim Hullebrand, I've been talking about everybody on this thing. So if we can go to the next slide. On this slide here, it looks like the roundabout, you did a good job of sliding it onto your property, so you don't have to talk to the other property owners across the street here. But that's a 1-lane road. That's a 1-lane turnaround. There's no way that's going to be sufficient for the rest of the commercial. Your master plan shows commercial on the other side of the street as well. So there's no way trucks can turn around in a 1-lane roundabout. So that's one of the concerns I have up there. If the last slide, since this one covered 2 of them, if I can just go to that intersection slide for a second, I think with Ruth had. Oh, sorry, Tom. So I'm concerned about planning ahead for that futuristic road, that turnaround. If that's going to be the future access to come back around to get to my property on the corner, the other gateway corner that we want to do something really cool on, right? Which I think we're doing on the other corner. We have to think through on that thing. We talked about the new owner. I think that property may have some interested parties on it. The ones I've talked to about it want to do commercial on that strip. Maybe there needs to be a frontage road across there to get to my property. Okay, somehow you got to get access to me, and somehow we got to make a big enough turnaround, since it's going to involve me now, that will handle trucks to come back around to my corner as well.
Thank you, sir. Your 3 minutes are up.
I'm sorry?
Your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, on that traffic lane, every corner was talked about except for mine. And so I think that that's a problem too. So if I'm out of time, and I've come to the planning board to try to be heard, where else do I go from here?
Sir, your 3 minutes are up, but if you need to speak to staff, obviously they would be available for you to speak to about this if this goes forward.
Before the planning board, huh? So the planning board doesn't want to consider this other stuff? Is that what we're saying?
Sir, there's limited time for public comment, and you've made your public comment. We appreciate that. Okay, with that, just so to make sure that everyone that's here that wanted to speak has had a chance to speak, is there anyone else that wants to speak this evening? Okay. Then with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. All right, so I would ask the applicant if they have any rebuttal to what they've heard from during the public hearing.
Thank you, Commissioners. For the record, Angela High, Land Use Counsel for the applicant. So one of the things that we heard was about the commercial use and the consistency with the comprehensive plan. And as you know, the process for with adoption of a comprehensive plan, with amendment to a comprehensive plan. It involves getting a significant amount of feedback from the community, determining the needs and desires of the community. But one of the things that it does not involve is any site level engineering studies. So while it is a visioning document, it's not based on any of those practical studies. And that's what we've had to do with respect to this application. So when we heard that feedback, what we did was we went back to the drawing board, Ruth went back to the drawing board and determined what is the maximum that could be built on this site. And one of the questions that we heard from the public comment was about that max capacity. Well, why is that the max capacity? Why can't we increase that on CDOT's roads? And this is a question that I also asked Ruth when we were looking at this intersection. And her response to me was very clear. It is that CDOT will not permit this expansion that we would need to this 6-lane highway. That is unfortunately a no-go in connection with this. So what we're working with is the intersection as it exists and the amount of commercial that can be developed on that site based on that roadway without additional expansion there. I will call up Kristen if you'd like to address some of these other items that we heard.
Okay, so one of the items that I've got on my list is the trail to nowhere. I know this comes up on other projects as well. So it is standard that when a property develops, they do the improvements for, your adjacent road improvements, trail improvements, the extension of the port trail, things of that matter. Sometimes they do connect to nothing, but the point is to incrementally add those pieces of connection, roadways and trails, as those properties develop, and over time the larger network evolves. Sometimes it's a key piece, that when a property comes online, it's a key piece that creates a big connection. Sometimes it's early in the process and it's just part of the process, but it's the way the town ensures that infrastructure is built. So we are adding to that network, and over time, as adjacent properties continue to develop, there would be additional trail connections that would come along with it. If it were not to be developed now, then you would be missing this chunk in perpetuity once the property has already developed. So it can be frustrating sometimes when things take time, but it's part of the process, and overall, over time, it does end up working and creating that network, as you can see from the trail network that we have today in the community, which is pretty robust, and as those little pieces come on and fill in, it's exciting when that happens. So there was some question about if a residential subdivision has significantly different lot sizes, if it's considered a different use. That is not how uses are determined per the land use code. Residential development, regardless of the lot size, is a residential development. And so a residential development that may develop next to it would be considered the same use. They are not different uses. This property.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I think the concern was specifically about how this property will be a mix of residential and commercial, and therefore would constitute a different use. Could you speak to that a little bit?
So the note that I had is that because Belcara is a significantly larger lot size, it is a different use than the residential type use that is proposed at Revere.
Okay, that's not how I understood it, but Ton, would you mind to clarify if a property is a mix of suburban residential and suburban commercial, would that warrant a buffer requirement?
Yeah, so for clarification, no. So it's adjacent use to adjacent use. So if the commercial, like in the instance where Revere is proposing commercial, as you move away from Mountain Avenue, then it transitions into those smaller lot residential, that would warrant buffering, because it's an adjacent use next to a different adjacent use. And in that particular case, commercial is considered a higher intensity use than residential, and therefore the commercial is responsible for implementing or designing that buffering. When it's residential to residential, to Kristen's point, regardless of lot size, if it's a residential use,
it's the same use, and therefore does not warrant for our code a buffer.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you.
No worries. Thank you for helping to clarify that. We all hear things a little differently sometimes. So, and I believe is the property to the north of us, is that a PUD?
I believe so.
Okay. So it is PUD. This property, obviously the request is to zone it to suburban residential to be consistent with the comp plan. So we meet the requirements for product types and lot sizes and things like that based on that zoning designation. So the comprehensive plan did envision something different than what the adjacent neighborhood is. If the comprehensive plan, for example, envisioned this as, the green coloring, the conservation development, you would expect to see much larger properties there, but we proposed a development that's consistent with the comprehensive plan and that SR zoning that would follow it. Let's see here. I think we've already discussed the commercial. The other thing, I know the comment came up again about how the density is calculated, but just to clarify again, density is calculated based on the gross density per the land use code, so that projects are calculating density consistently. The 10 acres that is listed in the neighborhood master plan is the actual portion of the Revere property that the residential we've designed takes up. So you can't calculate the density off of that. It is just a calculation of the amount of the overall space that is being laid out as residential at this time. I think I got to most of them. Is there anything else you had on your list that we might have missed?
How about, we heard the roundabout won't work, and we also heard that trucks will not be able to get into the commercial space because of the roundabout.
So the roundabout, as it is shown here, is a design that was done based on the Larimer County street guidelines for roundabouts. In those guidelines for intersections, they require certain trucks to be able to make it through these intersections. So what we do is we route on the computer. It's like driving a car in a map. We route these trucks through the roundabouts, through the intersections, and we update our design to make sure that those movements fit, that they'll make it through. Additionally, trucks are allowed to use the truck apron on the inside of the roundabout. So if you're going around town, you see some roundabouts, there's usually maybe a 10-foot truck apron that they're allowed to drive right over it. So that's what helps these big trucks get through roundabouts, is those truck aprons. But this will be based on the Larimer County standards for roundabouts, and it's been shown to work throughout town.
So just to ask it in a more simplistic way.
Oh, great.
Is there a type of vehicle that will not be able to get through this? Or will
Probably a train. No, I don't mean to joke, but it would be.
all trucks will be able to make?
With a semi-truck.
Yes, a semi truck. I'm trying to think of what is the biggest truck, like a double.
Yeah. We can ask Luke the question, compared to the existing new roundabout that we have going to Carter Lake, you see the one? No. So if you take County Road 8 and you go towards Carter Lake, you end up in a roundabout that goes to the left, it goes to Longmont, to the north goes to a neighborhood, and straight you can reach Carter Lake. So what is the new one planned compared to this one? Because we can understand what this one is, and this one has been done to accommodate with all the trucks and everything, because they are working over there. And
So I can't say for certain, obviously, since I didn't even know it existed, don't go over there. But it is in Larimer County, so it would have been designed and approved by Larimer County engineers based on their street standards. So presumably, if this one is also designed by those standards, it would fit the same vehicles.
And if I may, Chair Anderson.
Sure.
I know that a lot of detail has been presented with this neighborhood master plan. I want us to remember that the neighborhood master plan, the roundabout has not been engineered. This is a concept stage in our review, and 80% construction drawings, should this application proceed forward, that will be reviewed with the preliminary plat. So this has been conceptually designed with this application, and what we're looking at tonight is again just a concept phase. And if this proceeds forward, we're going to be looking at those more detailed engineered plans with that preliminary plat phase. So I just wanted everybody to remember that this is just concept tonight. And these are great questions, but again, concept.
Thank you, Anne.
Any other questions for the applicant at this point from what we heard just now? No? No one? Okay. All right, with that then, that takes us into the phase of our meeting where we will deliberate. And I think if you would, I think it's on pages 6 and 7 of our packet, we have the criteria for review of the neighborhood master plan. So can we get you to put that up on the screen for us?
Before we start deliberation, could I just ask a question of staff?
Sure.
Sorry, you asked if we had anything more for the applicant.
Sure.
So for me, as I'm looking at this, one of the keys seems to be, is this consistent with the master plan? And I understand the different scales of master plan being big global, it's not designed, this being conceptual and getting more granular. But from a big broad visual, it seems to me that the original intent was that commercial, that right now this is about a 3-to-1 ratio of residential to commercial. So commercial's about 10 acres, the residential is just under 30 acres, so it's about a 3-to-1 ratio. When I look at the master plan, it looks reversed, right? So it looks like, again, I don't have that scaled out, but that it's about a 3-to-1 ratio of commercial to residential.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand that, and again, I wasn't part of it, thank you, this is helpful. And again, that's, I mean, bigger than a red box, I think that's about the right ratio. Obviously, the board rejected this, the prior, because I think primarily it wasn't enough commercial. What's been testified, and so I'm trying to understand, A, do I have that right? In this master plan, the suburban residential that's shown, if we flipped this and somehow this was going to be more like 1/3 residential and 3 parts commercial. Am I correct that your statement in suburban residential, that would allow 17 units per acre? So in that much smaller portion under the code, they could have again, if we had 10 acres of residential as opposed to 28, that presumably you could have close to 170 units in that small area? Is that what was contemplated in the master plan?
Yes, Commissioner Sigmund. So we don't have a density in our land use code. What we have is a minimum lot size. So you can do the math, right? If our minimum lot size is 2,500 square feet, you divide that by, you divide the 43,560 square feet in an acre by the 2,500, and you get to roughly 17 dwelling units per acre. So that is the maximum density per that particular land use character district. And we have to remember that and Ms. Hillenbrand can attest to this, that the amount of acreage or the size of the commercial component, I believe, did increase from the original proposal as well. So.
And that's where, so now I'm going to turn to the engineer, because the argument or the criteria from the developer seems to be that based on the traffic and the projected traffic into 2042, is that right? That this is the maximum. And I understand, again, I spent a lot of time on the traffic because that seems to be the hinge of the question. So I'm going to ask staff, do you concur, based on all of the other approved developments in Berthoud, that really, that this is the maximum amount of commercial that can be supported on this site.
I don't know that I want to give a 100% yes, just because this was the first kind of traffic study that came about for this property. But based on the level of service requirements, they've widened the intersection as much as they can. So they've got 2 through lanes going east-west. They've got 2 left turn lanes going north-south. And what Ruth did, and I'm speaking for her, she can correct me if I'm wrong, is expanded the commercial as much as possible while meeting CDOT's level of service standards, which are different than the towns would be somewhere else. So CDOT's kind of controlling, they're holding the ball here, they're holding the cards. And commercial uses have a much higher traffic generation, so
an
just
increase
expanding a little bit quadruples the traffic or more. So
would exceed the standards that CDOT would allow.
And level of service, meaning you're sitting at that intersection a long
Or
time. The
DRF.
lower your level of service, the longer your wait time. And so what Ruth has done has made the maximum wait time possible with the use. Allowable wait time. If that's clear.
And like I said, to expound on that, am I correct in assuming that when the comprehensive plan was developed, I'm trying to think back, 2020, 2021, that we're talking about, the other developments that that Ruth had to add in to this traffic study, some of which weren't happening yet, right? So that might not have been contemplated when they decided which proportions.
Well, and I don't think there was specific engineering in the comp plan.
Yeah. So
there wasn't even traffic considered in the comp.
yeah, so I'm thinking that wasn't necessarily contemplated as far as the proportions.
They might have had a traffic consultant help, but there wasn't a full-on town-wide traffic study done for the comprehensive plan.
So, Madam Chair, to provide clarification to Commissioner Sibgan's initial question about looking at the future land use map and the comprehensive plan and how you see that it's almost flipped in that regard. So the comprehensive plan, of course, is it's our vision, it's our guiding document that is kind of like our business plan or our game plan for how the community wants to grow. The future land use map, because it does not include those technical evaluations and those plans and reports, the lines within the future land use map are not rigid. So those, and because this is not a legislative document, it is that guiding document, those lines do have some fluidity and can be modified once we start to look at those more technical details to see what truly is possible. So in this regard, if they're finding that they believe in those supporting documents and those technical evaluations that really increasing that commercial as best they can, they may not be able to get it so that it's 100% mirroring our future land use map. And so there has to be some flexibility because of those technical reports.
I guess is somebody I think it's vitally important we protect our commercial, and that you want to have a mix of residential and commercial because that makes the community a healthier community. I think that's reflected in the master plan. And I understand that. I guess I want to make sure that staff concurs with the findings that were presented by the developer, that this is, and again, I know you can't get to an absolute perfect, you couldn't add one more square foot, but that substantively you concur that, or staff concurs, and I was looking, I guess, at the traffic engineer in the room, but it is staff, that indeed increasing the commercial would push that intersection at 287 beyond what is an acceptable standard.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Any other questions at this point before we go through the criteria?
Sorry, thank you.
No, that's good. I'm glad you were that comfortable asking those questions. Thank you. Okay. All right, well, let's start going through the neighborhood master plan review criteria. All right. Number 1, the land use mix within the project conforms to Berthoud's zoning district map and comprehensive plan, preferred land use map, and furthers the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. And I think that's what we were just talking about.
Yes, that's a huge part of what I needed to get my head around.
So I think yes, in the sense that it includes both suburban residential and suburban commercial property. And think that what we have been told and shown evidence for tonight is that based on traffic projections, it is not possible to include more commercial in this space than currently planned for.
So are we saying because of that, that we believe the answer to number 1 is yes? That's the substantiation, is that it does include that mix. And we believe that because of that mix and because of the current situation, our belief in the traffic plan and the levels of service that are attendant to that can be accommodated, that we would say yes to this.
Yeah, because I think that goes to the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, which is in addition to just the map. So obviously, preserving commercial, having commercial at this location is an important component, but the goals are also to have a community that can be supported traffic-wise and other things is also in the comprehensive plan.
And if the traffic study demonstrates that there wouldn't be a proposed development that conforms in more agreement than what we see right now.
Good points.
I'm a yes on number 1.
Okay. So is there consensus of yes? I think I've heard consensus. Okay. All right, let's look then at number 2. The neighborhood master plan represents a functional system of land use and is consistent with the rationale and criteria set forth in this chapter, the town comprehensive plan, and the parks, open space, and recreation port plan as amended.
I think yes. I hear the criticisms about the trail systems and disconnects in that. I think that Kristen's point was well taken, that it's part of the process of building a trail is one piece at a time as these developments are approved. And I do think that the amount of open space in the development is compelling at like over 28%.
No, and I would agree with that rationale as well. Do we believe then that the answer to number 2 is yes, based on that, right, or substantiation?
Yes.
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 Okay. All right, so then we have consensus on yes for number 2. All right, number 3, the preliminary traffic open space, park utility, and pedestrian design is adequate and functional given the existing and planned capacities of each system and meets the standards found in this code. So we're looking at preliminary traffic, open space, park, utility, and pedestrian design. So pedestrian design, we saw, what, about 3 miles of altogether?
Yep.
Open space, 11 acres? Open space?
11%.
11%, is it?
And I think the other concern with the preliminary traffic assessment was the roundabout, which
Yes.
has been clarified that trucks would be able to access the roundabout even though it's 1 lane.
Okay, considering that rationale, do we all agree that number 3 is yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have consensus on number 3, that we would answer that with a yes. All right, let's look at number 4. Negative impacts on adjacent land uses have been identified and satisfactorily mitigated.
This is where I have mixed feelings. And I think it stems from the density issue. I think that's come up a lot, the lack of feathering, and the comparing density of the north end of the proposed development with the neighboring development. I think that given the density of the application as a whole, it's a high bar to ask the applicant to reduce the density further than they have in this proposal. But I recognize that the density to the north of them is substantially lower, and people have concerns about that, which is why I'm feeling conflicted about whether or not those impacts have been mitigated.
I
Well,
think
that's part of what I struggled with as well, and that's why I asked about the 17 units per acre standard on what was really contemplated in that master plan, because obviously they're going much lower density. I do think it was a substantive change to both get rid of the trail that was along there and to increase the lot sizes immediately adjacent. But I recognize there's still a huge difference between basically the 1 acre lots and then the 8,000 square foot lots. But that seems to be what's contemplated in the town's master plan, actually even likely denser than that was originally contemplated. So I think that they meet it. I mean, I certainly think that they've made adjustments, which I think are substantively big improvements over the prior plan as far as that mitigation and then adjusting from the 1 acre lots to 8,000 to the 6,000 to then the smallest lots. So that's what I consider the feathering, but I'm not sure that I have a definition of feathering. But it's certainly they're graduating the density as they get closer to those large lots.
when I think of negative impacts, I think of what negatively could happen to what is existing by this plan. And so that's what I keep thinking about. How will does the buffering mitigate some things like noise? Does it mitigate some things like maybe the aesthetic quality of the area? And so that's why I'm trying to think through, are the things that have happened enough? Density-wise, I guess I have a question for Zeph, and this is a weird question, so y'all are going to be like, Karen, how do you come up with these questions? But do we have a statistic as to what is the average size of a single family, a lot for a single family home in Berthoud? Do we know what that is? I know they're looking at me like, okay, yeah, we knew she was going to come up with something really weird. But
In Old Town Berthoud, Chair Anderson, a standard block in Old Town Berthoud, I believe, is an acre. And on many blocks in Old Town Berthoud, there range from 10 to 16 on average homes per block. And so that's two faces of the back to back. So 12 to 18 homes on that acre in Old Town Berthoud. When you're going to some of our new developments in Legacy Park, for example, I know that density is much higher. In Farmstead 2, which they're under construction, that density may be somewhat similar to 12 to 16 per acre. In Harvest West, that might be more akin to 8,000 to 14,000 square foot lots. And a lot of the lots, they're wanting to stay under a certain square footage as well. because the water dedication requirements increase to 1.25 standard residential equivalencies once you increase over a certain square footage for lots. So staying underneath a certain size helps you stay under in that, you know, that $25,000 range for your water equivalency, your raw water dedication requirement. So that's going to get you around a 10 to 12,000 square foot lot maximum. So that's really the maximum that we're seeing today in that in a harvest type subdivision. More what we're seeing in Pickle, Farmstead, Vantage, Hammond, Prairie Star, Village at Rose Farm, we're seeing between 6 and 8 on average.
I
1,000
was
square feet
curious.
lots.
I was just curious, and particularly considering housing, the housing issues that we have right now. I was just wondering what that would.
Yep, so of course a smaller lot size is going to give you a more affordable product
Right.
depending on the type of product you put on the lot. If you're gonna go with a non-potable irrigation system, that lowers your cost for raw water dedication for the inside potable uses. The smaller the lot size, the less money you'd have to pay for those potable uses as well as your raw water for outside uses. So there's water's a complicating factor when it comes to housing affordability. However, that's when we were working on our housing diversity plan, those are just some overall densities that I reviewed.
And Madam Chair, not to add to the complexities. So in our future land use map, so what you see on a future land use map are character areas or character districts. So the yellow on that future land use map would be the suburban residential character district. So per the comprehensive plan, within that suburban residential district, you actually have a number of zone districts that actually could be proposed by the applicant. So we have our standard Euclidean zoning, which is the R1, R2, R3, and R4. Those are all allowed within the suburban residential character district. In addition to then our newer zone districts, which are more of our transect zoning, which is the suburban residential, suburban commercial. So keeping in mind that per the development code, the suburban, so whereas 17 dwelling units for the suburban residential, you can actually get a higher density if they were to propose a different zone district that is still supported by the comprehensive plan.
Gotcha.
So technically, they could have proposed like an R4 zone district, which would have been supported by the comprehensive plan, and the R4 zone district has a maximum density of 24 dwelling units per acre. So down to, if they went with an R1, that would reduce it. But keeping in mind, there is actually a number of zone districts, while we do prefer the new Euclidean zoning because it does offer up a little bit more variety when it comes to uses, they could have technically or could potentially propose a different zone district as long as it's within those supported districts by the comprehensive plan. So that, I know that adds more complexity to the density conversation, but just something to keep in mind as you're contemplating.
Well, and one of the things it keeps going through my head is the density that proposed. Would it cause negative impacts? And so I'm trying to, in my mind, satisfy myself that the density that's proposed now is something that does it cause a negative impact or does it not cause a negative impact? And do the things that have been done, like taking removing the trail,
Lowering the density.
cutting,
No, it's not required.
having the buffer even though it's not required, do those things mitigate anything that could be a negative impact if that density causes a negative impact? So that's what's kind of going through my head.
Yeah.
And
I tend to say yes, that it does mitigate.
Yeah, me too.
other, Commissioner Pond, do you have
What
comments
is,
about
what
that?
is the total density for the residential area that the staff agrees to, as opposed to the applicant?
Multiple numbers.
So really, the zone district is what determines that density. So it's not necessarily that staff agrees, it's the fact that the code allows up to the 17 residential dwelling units per acre. And therefore, if they wanted to propose that density per the code, because that is allowed, we would be able to support that because it's allowed by the code.
But is what's being
About
proposed?
the ratio
I
is what
believe
we're-
it's 2.8
Mm-hmm.
is what's being proposed, correct?
Yeah, yes.
And you agree that
Okay,
that's the
number.
appropriate.
That's the number I was looking for.
Oh, yes, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay,
it would be
so-
2.1
yeah.
if we included the commercial area.
Yeah.
The gross, yep, the
In the gross,
overall.
but if you take out the commercial and you just do the calculation based on the land area being used for residential uses, it's 2.8, am I
And-
correct?
And you all agree with that ratio in that calculation?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So where are we then? Do we, considering negative impacts on the adjacent uses, have they been identified and satisfactorily mitigated? I think that's the question. First, and like I said, in my head, I keep thinking, okay, does the density cause a negative impact? And if it does, have those been mitigated? Because I think that's the negative impact that's the thing that we keep hearing may cause a negative impact. Do we think that things like the trail removal, that the buffer, that the
And moving to larger lots than ones originally.
moving to larger lots, that decrease in density, do we think that satisfactorily mitigates any negative impacts?
Yes, and I think that had Ton not clarified about what is required in the code about a buffer space, I might ask for, maybe an amendment that specifies what would go in that buffer space. But since it is one of their characteristics of the development, there are already requirements in the code for what they would put in there to mitigate negative impacts.
And I'm wondering if we can think about this a little bit, but do we want to add any conditions about the types of, if this moves forward, the types of things that we would like to see to help further mitigate, like berming?
Yeah, and that's where I was like, I think it's already accounted for
You think
by
so?
the code.
And we
Would
will
you mind
be
to
looking
reread
at
that
that.
part? Yeah.
When it comes to us for preliminary plat, we
Yeah.
will
We'll
see
see
it.
it, yeah.
Correct.
See it.
So we can determine then that it's sufficient. And again, then the residents have a chance to weigh in on
Yes,
whether
and
it's
that's
sufficient.
that's
to
another
them or
thing.
whether that's-
I think maybe we noodle on a condition that says that we would, or some type of statement that we would hope that the residents in the area are consulted about the type of mitigation, I guess, or we want to call it the buffering as a part of the mitigation is ultimately decided upon.
Do we have to do it right now, or?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to decide. Is that something we should, or maybe we can just, if we would like to, we can just tell the
Yeah.
the applicant that this is something that we believe needs to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked to seen the applicant communicate at all directly with the existing neighborhood.
Yeah, I think there was a neighborhood meeting between the first planning commission
was.
and the town board of trustees meeting, but that was over a year ago.
Yeah, it was over a year
at
ago.
this point. And their position was that they had incorporated the feedback from that meeting in this design.
And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we're saying is we would like to see that happen again if this gets to the point where the preliminary plat is developed, so that the neighbors can have some type of, can have feedback with regard to, and can have some say in what happens as far as that buffering is concerned.
Yeah, rather than, you know, they're interested in privacy fences or a little bit more open, the type of landscaping that goes in there, berming, things like that. I think it would be great to work with the neighbors ahead of us seeing that preliminary plan.
Yes.
To try to do whatever is possible to mitigate any concerns on them.
And the applicant has already expressed that they are more flexible than you might expect on moving certain trees and things of that nature.
So, Madam Chair, for clarification, you could condition the approval that a neighborhood a neighborhood meeting would be required prior to submitting preliminary plat.
So let's think about that before we make any motions, depending on what we decide about the criteria.
Who's gonna write it?
Okay, so let me get back to number 4 again. Are we saying yes, that the negative impacts on the adjacent land uses have been identified and satisfactorily mitigated?
I say yes.
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 All right, so sounds like we have a consensus that the answer to that, to number 4 is yes. All right, then let's go to number 5. There is a need or desirability within the community for the development, and the development will help achieve a balance of land use and or housing types within Berthoud according to town goals. We've talked about the fact that it does provide different housing types. We all know from being a part of the housing study that that's needed here.
Yeah, for me, the key was the balance of land use,
Yes.
right? We want to preserve commercial. We want to have a strong commercial base in this community because that financially helps the community. And I wanted to be assured that what we were getting here is the ratio of residential to commercial is what can actually take place in this site and not impact the infrastructure, particularly the road system. So
Yeah,
Commissioner Sigmund.
that's where I was kind of trying to get to all of those sort of answers. but
Commissioner Sigmund, I
believe
think
it does.
your point is well taken and your sentiment shared by several
Yes.
of us. Thank you for that. Okay, so are we then saying yes
Yes.
to number 5?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a consensus on number 5. All right. Then with that, since we've discussed all of those and we believe that it meets all 5 of these conditions, then we are saying that we believe that the criteria has been met. So with that, then we are at the stage, do we want any more discussion before a motion? No? Okay, then with that, I would entertain a motion.
I'm writing.
Oh, who's,
I move to make a
There you go.
recommendation to the town of trustees to approve the review request for a neighborhood master plan. Planning Commission's recommendation is based on the findings outlined in the staff report and deliberated that the criteria for approval found in section 30-6-106 of the municipal code have been met as outlined in the staff report. And I also move to include a condition that would require the applicant to hold a neighborhood meeting to discuss the buffering section prior to preliminary plan.
So Commissioner Sigmund made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Smith seconds. Ms. Manzo, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Pond,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffmans,
yes.
Commissioner Sigmund,
Yes.
Vice Chair Smith,
Yes.
Chair Anderson.
Yes. Okay. With that, then we will move to consideration of the rezoning map amendment request. So let's go to the criteria, please, for the rezoning request. Okay, let's go through these one by one. Now, remember, they only have to meet one of the
Yeah.
5. Staff has said they believe they meet number 2. So let's talk about number 1. Number 1 is to correct a manifest error in an ordinance establishing the zoning for a specific property. No. I think we all agree on that. Number 2, to rezone an area or extend the boundary of an existing district because of changed or changing conditions in a particular area or in the town generally.
Yeah, I agree with this since we don't use PUD.
Anymore, yeah. Okay, so we think at least number 2. I always like to go through them to see if there's any other ones that we think that would apply for the benefit of the board. The land to be rezoned was zoned in error and as presently zoned is inconsistent with the policies and goals of the town comprehensive plan. No. Everybody agree on that? Okay. The proposed rezoning is necessary to provide land for a community-related use, and that was not anticipated at the time of the adoption of the town comprehensive plan, and the rezoning will be consistent with the policies and goals of the comprehensive plan. Not really a community-related use, nope. Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 5, the area requested for rezoning has changed or is changing to such a degree that it is in the public interest to encourage development or redevelopment of the area. I don't know, that one's sort of.
Yes on that one.
Yeah, I kind of would think that the backup one would be number 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're saying possibly 2 and 5. All right, so with that, we at least have one of possibly 2 of the criteria we think that are met. So we're at the entertain a motion with regard to the rezoning request.
I move to make a recommendation to the town trustees to approve the Revere request for a zoning to SR, suburban residential, and SC, suburban commercial, in accordance with the 2021 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map. The process for approval found in Municipal Code Section 30-3-110, and the criteria for approval found in Section 30-3-110.d of the Municipal Code as outlined in the staff report.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Smith. Do we have a second?
Yes.
We have a second by Commissioner Pond. Ms. Manzo, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hoffmans?
Yes.
Commissioner Sigmund?
Yes.
Commissioner Pond?
Yes.
Vice Chair Smith?
Yes.
Chair Anderson?
Yes. So that motion passes. Okay. That takes us to the next item on our agenda, and that's the election of Planning Commission officers. Our officers are Chair, Vice Chair, and Secretary. I will tell you I would like to continue as Chair if you would all have me do that. Are there other nominations?
I would like to continue as vice chair. I'll nominate myself for that.
Nick isn't here and he's our current secretary.
Oh, so we can nominate him.
Let's nominate him immediately.
Nominate him in abstention unless someone else wants to do it. Don't hear anyone. All right, with that slate of candidates, Chair being Karen Anderson, Vice Chair being Abigail Smith, and Secretary being Nick Samadalis. And I don't know if he calls himself
Wait,
Nicholas.
can we actually nominate him if he's not here? Is that allowed? Yes.
And then at the next one, you can double check that
decline.
you
Yeah.
can
Okay.
accept.
Okay.
So then I'd rather, if it's okay with you all, to vote those in a group as opposed to.
As long as I can keep the timer, I'm fine.
Oh,
Yes.
he's our designated timer forever, right? Yeah, yes. All right, so, do you want to call the roll on that? And so our motion, I guess, I need one of you to make the motion, but. Someone want to make the motion?
So moved.
Okay, so moved, okay. So moved by Commissioner Sigmund. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Seconded by Commissioner Pond. And Ms. Manzo, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Sigmund?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffmans?
Yes.
Commissioner Pond?
Yes.
Vice Chair Smith?
Yes.
Chair Anderson?
Yes. Okay, so we have elected our officers and done our duty.
Yay, thank you, Karen.
Thank you for continuing.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem.
How many years now?
I have a lot of support here. You guys are amazing. And I think the way I look at it, I think, I can't speak for you, Abby, but I think the way you look at it too is it's a collaboration. We all gel really well. You know, it's great. So thank you to all of you. And I publicly want to thank you, Stacy, for, after having a back injury, still making it to the meeting tonight. It's important, and I
Thank you.
really appreciate that. You know, yes, anything for quorum, she says. They'll have her in here in a wheelchair, right? Not doing that. Okay. All right. So, next on our agenda would be reports. So, staff, do we have some reports? Are we going to tell us about the board meeting on Tuesday night?
Yes. So, Ton, would you like to tell about Farmstead Acres preliminary plats?
Yes, so Farmstead Acres preliminary plat was heard by the town board of trustees, and they did approve it. It was a pretty straightforward, quick hearing. Yeah, there were no conditions. It was pretty uneventful. So but however, I mean, I think they did have a really good conversation, and it was really productive. So.
Wonderful.
The town trustees also approved the River Trails annexation agreement, the change of zone, and the neighborhood master plan. And it was also brought up that the respect and work that the planning commission put into making decisions and deliberation should be respected by the town board of trustees. So a nod to the planning commission was given at that hearing. So the next step there will be their Metro District Service Plan, and then if that is approved, then moving forward with a preliminary plat application.
Didn't they also accept the condition that we had put on that?
They did. Yep, they did. On September 11th, there is a land use application that will be heard, and I understand that Commissioner Sigmund and Commissioner Pond will not be there, so I'm just wanting to make sure that the other four will be there so that we have quorum that evening. September 11th. And then on September 25th, we will have the attorney and staff will provide an orientation, because on September 8th, and Chair Anderson, you will be receiving notice from Clerk Samora that there will be interviews, and there are four candidates or applicants for Planning Commission. I don't know who they are yet. I did call your neighbor. 4 applicants, I believe, for Planning Commission appointments, and we will be interviewing them, and the selected candidate then will be appointed on the 9th of September. So they will be joining us then on the 25th of September for that good orientation by staff, as well as by the Attorney Smith will be joining us that evening. And then that session will be available to you all that can't attend that night.
Hey, can we give them a welcome by having pizza or something that night too?
You bet. We will have pizza that night. Yes. I'm taking notes on this chart, so please help remind me.
It'll be in the minutes.
Yeah, pizza and chocolate.
Oh, chocolate.
Okay.
Just chocolate's fine.
Let's see. Oh. Okay. Bella is putting together don't say it. It's been a long week already, so we can be a little cheeky. Bella is putting together a peep show for a tree strip field trip for Planning Month. Because now
can you explain a little bit? Because I mean, English is not my native language.
Go for it, Bella.
A green light district. Yes, so as we move away from non-functional turf, we are thinking about renaming our tree lawns to tree strips. So we want to present some good examples around the region of tree strips that are landscaped appropriately for the climate and that limit use of non-functional turf. So you'll get to see some fun case studies.
Okay, great.
Yes, and so we're going on a virtual peep show of tree strips.
A tree strip tease.
I like that. That's great.
And then we have, so in the community development department, we also, Bella is the staff liaison to the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee. And we're doing a historic preservation master plan this year. We received a grant, and that is going to kick off in September. And part of that, we will be at Oktoberfest on October 4th. And they will be taking some public testimony or collecting ideas about what is important for historic preservation in the town of Berthoud. And while it's a very small part of the planning code, the Historic Preservation Committee will be working on that action plan this coming year. And then we will be taking a real field trip this winter. I know we keep kicking it down the road for downtown expansion, so yes, that is in the plans. Oh, also on Oktoberfest, another thing that the town is working on that is in alignment with our open space planning is the recent acquisition of some of the property along the Little Thompson corridor for open space preservation. So that will also be at the community development table or booth for Oktoberfest. So make sure you stop by, give us your opinion about open space preservation and habitat preservation. And then Luke, do you want to talk about the Fair and Piers work that you're going to be embarking on at the end of this year and into next year?
Sure, I can do that. We're contracting, or going to set up a contract with Fair and Piers, which is a traffic engineering company, to create a town-wide traffic model, which is pretty much using the same program that the developers use, but it'll be kind of managed by us once we learn how to use it. And then we'll be able to more holistically kind of take the matters of how intersections are performing into our own hands and ensure that all the developers and their engineers are doing the right thing, which, I mean, their reports tend to show, but they look at only the adjacent developments, whereas we would have all the developments across town.
Do you have software that simulates traffic around town for like the whole town or just certain areas?
Currently, we do not.
Okay.
So we currently rely wholly on the development studies to understand the traffic impacts. And
like the traffic engineer that was here, that's the applicants, but you guys review their reports?
yeah, so we would be the ones suggesting, like, please add this development.
I see.
That development, study this intersection. So they go out and get the existing traffic counts, and then CDOT has, they have counts and growth rates that they recommend. So they get the existing traffic counts, they get the growth rates from CDOT, multiply it, and then usually, in this case, and with most others, they're more conservative with their growth rates to kind of provide a conservative estimate of what the traffic needs will be 20 years down the road.
And what this does, though, is those are mostly in isolation or to a small area in town without looking at the entire the impact to the entire community. So this will enable Luke, and hopefully a Luke Jr. soon, to look at the impacts of particular developments on the entire community, or the cumulative impact of multiple developments in a sub-region of Berthoud, without taking a report from one, a report from another, a report from a third, and piecing it all together. he'll have that tool then that will enable him to be making better decisions. Yep, all that good data for the town.
Also good for public works in terms of seeing road capacity that may be in an area where both sides of a road are developed, or all the areas around an intersection are developed, and being able to say this intersection needs to improve, and it's the town's responsibility because the town has grown or something like that. So it'll be good for both developments and for our public works team.
And then on October 9th, there may be a land use case that evening, and if not, you will definitely be seeing the entire Chapter 30, which is the land use code, come to you in its entirety. So we will be hoping to publish that and give you at least a week, if not 10 days to be reviewing that. And that presentation is what has trickled out of everything is it's very heavy into making changes to the design section. There are changes into other portions of the land use code, but the majority of the changes really are in design.
I think I know the answer to this, so I apologize ahead for asking it. And it probably doesn't come with your update, but I keep struggling with the fact, like this discussion today about the different densities that could be in that district. And the fact, we had it with the last one, that there, that said, okay, if you're adjacent to agricultural, there should be, a significant, but significance not defined. But I think that when you're going from 1 acre properties to, I was like, okay, 1 acre to 17 an acre is huge. And then to find out it could actually be even denser than that. And in some cases we have agricultural uses that's, that's much larger even than 1 acre. Is there any contemplation, I'm so used to zoning being kind of feathered or stepped, right? You go from 1 acre zoning to half acre zoning to and I hear a lot of people in the community talk about wanting to control zoning. I understand affordable housing, diverse housing types, but is there a thought or a mechanism that can, or am I just too late for how we look at what density is compatible to the one next to it, so that we are kind of doing it more gradual and not you're 1 acre and now you're 38 units per acre next to you, or 18, or whatever it is.
Yep, so for Berthoud, it's a difficult conversation because Berthoud's goal is to develop in the core very dense for efficient service provision, for affordability, all of that. And then as we go out to the fringe to have that feathering effect. However, it is something that just even today I was trying to put the finishing touches on with our architect that I've been working with. It will be presented in a way, though, that is not going to be definitive, such as, you shall do X percentage and here's your calculation and this is how you figure it out. It's going to be more of you shall do this and you shall provide us with how you're going to do it, and we will evaluate it to see if it is good enough. Yeah, so it's not going to be defined, it is going to be you shall do it, and there shall be some minimums, and these are the minimums, and we will evaluate if it's gonna be good enough.
I have a question for you. When you hear secondhand in one of these meetings about what a town board did or said or something like that, it's my understanding that that's not part of our criteria to review that. Is that correct?
Can you give me an example?
There was people that mentioned a 6-to-1 vote by the town board, and that the town board said this or that or the other.
Which was technically on a previous application.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Different application.
Okay, so
Well, I mean, it was this, but like technically it wasn't. So it's, yeah, I see your point. Like, should we even be considering that?
yeah, is that
Yeah.
that should or should not? I mean, it's
No.
secondhand information to me. I don't know what all of you would know because you were on the commission.
And it's like arguing before a court. It's like saying to a court, well, on this issue, with these parties, you did this. You know what I mean? If it's not the same thing, not the same set of facts, then really doesn't apply. So, you have to think of them as distinct things. I know it's kind of hard, but.
This was another file. There
Yeah.
was something that has disappeared.
My last comment is that I was kind of getting hung up on number 4, the satisfactorily identified and mitigated. Is an applicant's next plan basically their mitigation, even if they are not doing a lot of talking to the neighbors? I mean, it just seems like that is their way of saying we've mitigated what we think your concerns might be without even.
Correct. So, and then when we ask as a, how do you say that, a restriction or an added question on the motion, how do you say
A
that?
condition of approval.
The conditional approval, thank you. Yeah, it's late and my brain, I mean, it's.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm feeling the same way.
Takes a lot of brain power to, make everything in English for me, but anyway. What did I want to say? Yeah, so can we add in the condition that we would love to see a report of that? Because here today, there was discussion about, we did the meeting and people were saying, no, we haven't been invited. So we were a little bit in the middle of nowhere because who's telling the truth? And how can we have the feedback on that?
So, Ton,
Sorry. So because it is a condition of approval, we will require as part of their submittal a summary of the meeting.
Okay.
And
All right.
understanding what were the primary talking points. We will also ask them to provide a sign-in sheet, so those who choose to sign in at the community meeting will have a copy of that. So yes, we will ask
Okay.
them to provide us that information.
And wasn't that part of what you provided to the Board of Trustees last time?
Correct.
I thought that's what happened.
Yep, so anytime, so keeping in mind that the current development code does not require neighborhood outreach, neighborhood meetings. Certainly you all have that ability, to provide that as a condition. But we have recommended it in certain circumstances when we know it's going to be contentious or we're hearing rumblings. We will suggest it, and even in those instances, we always ask them to let us know, because for one, oftentimes then that comes with lots of conversation in the community, and then we start getting all these calls and, people thinking that it's already taking place. So we like to be prepared. But again, even we do ask that while this wasn't required and you did this ahead of submitting your application, can we please have a summary? Again, just so that we're prepared and we can offer that then to you all in the town board of trustees.
and while we really do want applicants to work with their neighbors, we also want the neighbors to work
With
with
the
applicants. So it has to be that equal footing, and sometimes applicants just don't want an application to occur. And you can't force it.
Right.
It's just like you can't keep forcing a round peg in a square hole. And that round peg is just not gonna go in that square hole regardless of how hard we want it to go in that square hole. And so it has to be, you can tell them you have to have this neighborhood meeting and you have to ask them, what can we do to help you and satisfy you? And if they just say, we just don't want you.
Right.
I'll go do that.
No, and I understand that there are gonna be situations where the people are so adamant on one side of something, the applicant, or the neighbors that they're not gonna talk to each other.
Right.
You know, but I think not making the effort to say we wanna do this in certain situations, it isn't appropriate. You know, just to bypass it just because you don't wanna do it, that's what bothers me. Anyway, all right, do we have
All right.
anything else, anything to report?
That was a good meeting.
Any of us have anything to report?
No, that was enough. We've got a lot going on.
All right,
Thank
then
you all.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Yeah, we do.
And we have a second. Okay, then we are adjourned.
All right.